Chapter 1129. The ancient silver mirror wasn't big, and it was made of an unknown material. The surface of the mirror was smooth, and it was covered with mysterious runes. It seemed to be able to reflect everything in the world. It was like a bottomless abyss of the great Tao. As soon as the ancient mirror appeared, the great Tao in the white pagoda started to move, intertwining with boundless Tao energy. That's right. This should be the Tianji divine mirror, Ling Yun said. Wuxing Crocodile nodded. That's it. Master God Diviner stood off to the side with an excited expression. After all, the mirror was left behind by their progenitor. Throughout history, no one other than their progenitor had ever seen it. Now, after such a long time, as one of the successors of this sect, he was finally lucky enough to see it. Holy light danced and surged in the pagoda. The divine mirror floated up and down, ancient and vast. Yinyama was also shocked. She couldn't help but ask the lady, "Founder, is this the Tianji divine mirrors?" The lady nodded gently, with a sense of gentleness and elegance. In an instant, the divine light emitted by the divine mirror became more intense. It was colorful, and it turned into butterflies that danced in the air. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Little Taichu lay on top of Lin Tian's head, blinking its big watery eyes as it stared at the butterflies. Lin Tian stared at the Tianji divine mirror, which was covered with mysterious runes. He was naturally shocked, but more than that, he frowned slightly. That was because when he looked at the Tianji divine mirror, he felt that there was life energy flowing in it, which made him feel very strange. One had to know that regardless of what kind of magical treasure it was, it shouldn't have life energy. Even the chaotic Yuan, heavenly treasure, wouldn't have life energy flowing in it. He narrowed his eyes, and the dragon light surged. He opened his eye of delusion and looked at the Tianji divine mirror again. Suddenly, his expression changed. Presently, his cultivation had attained the third level of the rebirth realm, and his control of the divine eye of delusion had become a few times stronger, causing it to be far from something it could be compared to before. At this moment, he opened his divine eyes and actually saw a small portion of the celestial spiritual origin in the divine mirror of divination. Moreover, the essence of the mirror seemed to be forged from skulls, and it also carried the celestial spiritual aura. This is forged from a combination of a small part of the immortal spirit king physique's origin and the king physique skull. His heart trembled, and he could not help but shift his gaze to the woman who had summoned the divine mirror. This woman, this immortal spirit king physique from countless years ago, the founder of the divination school, had actually used less than half of her essence and her king physique to forge this divination divine mirror. Was this necessary? As if she had sensed Lin Tian's gaze and knew that Lin Tian had seen through something, the woman also looked at Lin Tian. Just like before, there was a faint smile on her face. At the same time, there was a deep and ancient look in her eyes. In the next moment, there was a buzzing sound, and the silver Tianji divine mirror shone with divine light. All the Tao inscriptions on it lit up, and the surrounding celestial spiritual aura also intertwined, instantly enveloping the woman and Yin Yamur. Buzz! The void inside the pagoda buzzed, and a light circle about 10 feet in diameter formed. The divine light was hazy, and Tao energy surrounded it. Nothing inside could be seen, and even Lin Tian couldn't see through it with his divine eye of delusion. He couldn't even hear anything. You've summoned the divine mirror, and now you want to help the little girl integrate it? Wuxing Crocodile stared ahead, and then his eyes shone again. However, that divine mirror is not simple. Lord Crocodile has seen a flawless heavenly treasure before. Even if a heavenly treasure was placed in front of Lord Crocodile could recognize it immediately. However, Lord Crocodile can't sense the grade of this divine mirror at all. The only feeling I have is unfathomable. Amazing, Ling Yun nodded. The marvelous mathematician's eyes shone with light and relief. His disciple, Yin Yer, was now in control of the divine mirror left behind by the divination primogenitor. As her master, he was naturally happy and relieved. Lin Tian stared ahead, At this time, he had already closed his divine eye of delusion. However, he frowned slightly. That divine mirror was forged by the divination primogenitor with less than half of his life essence and his king physique. It really surprised him. Buzz! In the White Tower, the celestial spiritual light and endless Tao radiance circled around, forming a divine halo that emitted bursts of halos. In the divine halo, the woman and Yin Yup stood face to face. The divination divine mirror floated between them, bobbing up and down. Yin Yup looked at the divine halo outside, then looked at the woman opposite her. Primogenitor, what are we? As you can see, I will help you integrate the divine mirror. The process won't take too long. Of course, it won't be difficult. After all, you and I have the same body constitution. The woman's eyes were gentle. She paused and said, "After this, I have something to ask of you." Yinya was stunned. The primogenitor of her bloodline had something to ask of her? Buzz! The divination divine mirror shone and enveloped Yinya. In the next moment, it disappeared into her body. In an instant, Yinya body emitted a shocking halo, and the divine mirror slowly slid into her sea of consciousness. Then, not long after, the divine mirror arrived in her sea of consciousness. It intertwined with strands of light chains that flew in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it merged with her sea of consciousness, causing her sea of consciousness to tremble involuntarily and shine brightly. Suddenly, Yinyapur's body trembled violently. She could clearly feel the essence of the divine mirror in her sea of consciousness. Primogenitor, what is this? She looked at the woman opposite her with a rare look of surprise. Because they were both celestial spiritual bodies, and the divination divine mirror had begun to integrate with her. She could feel that this divine mirror was forged by the primogenitor in front of her with her own king body skull and a small part of her life origin. She was shocked. This, calm your mind and focus. The woman's eyes were gentle. As soon as she finished speaking, dense Tao radiance came from all around and drowned Yinya, causing the divination divine mirror that had entered her sea of consciousness to integrate with Yinya even faster. Then, at the same time, the aura of the divination divine mirror overflowed and flowed into Yinyapur's body, causing her spiritual energy to rise rapidly. Buzz! The celestial spiritual light intertwined, and the Tao radiance was extremely dense. In just a moment, Yinyapur's cultivation level approached the Nirvana realm. Inside the White Tower, outside the divine light circle, Lin Tian was still frowning at this moment, thinking about the divination divine mirror. That divine mirror was forged by the divination primogenitor, with a small part of her life origin in her king body skull. This was a little too much. Logically speaking, even if one's life was about to end, normally no one would do such a thing, right? Moreover, the divination primogenitor was a woman. Usually, women cherished their own bodies, didn't they? Using such a method to forge the divine mirror was clearly harming her own body. Kid, what are you thinking about? Whooshing Crocodile couldn't help but ask when he saw his strange expression. Lin Tian shook his head. Nothing. Although he said so, his brows were still slightly furrowed. Chapter 1130. Upon hearing Whooshing Crocodile's words, Ling Yun and the marvelous mathematician turned to look at Lin Tian as well. They found it strange. After all, the woman was the mark left behind by the ancestor of the divination sect. However, she didn't look at the marvelous mathematician or Yinya at first glance. Instead, she looked at Lin Tian as if she was looking at someone familiar. You're overthinking. Lin Tian shook his head. Someone familiar? He hadn't even seen her portrait before. How could he be familiar with her? He could only think of one reason why she looked at him at that time. It had something to do with his body constitution. I think you're overthinking. However, it's still quite strange. Whooshing Crocodile said. It thought about it. The ancestor of the divination sect was from the past, while Lin Tian was from this era. There was no way the two of them would have any connection. Ling Yin shrugged and said, anyway, this kid is very heaven-defying and has a lot of secrets. Maybe the founder of the way of divination saw through something. Whooshing crocodile said. That's the only explanation. Lin Tian glanced at the man and the crocodile, but didn't say anything. He paused and didn't want to think about the divination divine mirror anymore. After all, what the divination divine mirror was made of and how it was made had nothing to do with him. Buzz! Divine light intertwined, and there was a buzzing sound in front of them. Outside the divine light circle, there were immortal lights and Tao radiance jumping around like fairies. Within the divine light circle, the divination divine mirror entered Yin Er's sea of consciousness. The Tao radiance became thicker, and all kinds of immortal lights surged. They merged with Yin Er's sea of consciousness at a very fast speed. Yin Er's essence, qi, and spirit became stronger and stronger. The woman stood opposite her. Her eyes were gentle, and Tao radiance surrounded her body. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. On this day, a majestic force rushed out of Yin Er's body and entered the Nirvana realm from the half-step to the Nirvana realm. It was also at this time that the divination divine mirror stabilized in her sea of consciousness and merged with her perfectly. Primogenitor, this, Yin Er looked at her ancestor and sensed that she had reached the first sky of Nirvana realm. She also sensed that the Tianji divine mirror had completely merged with her and was floating in her sea of consciousness. She could use it freely now, but at this moment, she was more concerned about the Tianji divine mirror. This divine mirror was actually forged with half of her bloodline's origin and the king body skull. She was a bit shocked. The woman obviously knew what Yin Er was thinking. She shook her head gently, indicating that Yin Er didn't need to thank her. I'll leave the Tianji divine mirror to you. Looking at Yin Er, the woman's gaze was very gentle. She said, after this, you will follow the person who escorted you here. You were with the person who escorted me here? Yin Er's expression changed. Lin Tian, consider it my request. The woman said. Yin Er was shocked again. The primogenitor of the Tianji bloodline had actually said the word request to her, a descendant of the Tianji bloodline. And it seemed that it was for Lin Tian. This made her both surprised and confused. Why did this person from so many years ago seem to care so much about Lin Tian? He was so strange. The woman looked at Yin Er's confused and shocked eyes. Don't think too much. Yin Er opened her mouth and said, oh. She paused and asked again, follow him. Does that mean I have to follow him all the time? It seems like, putting aside the surprise that the primogenitor of the Tianji bloodline asked her to follow Lin Tian, if she really followed Lin Tian all the time, it might cause trouble for Lin Tian. After all, she was a woman and Lin Tian was a man. After all, men and women were different. If they didn't have that special relationship, how could she follow Lin Tian all the time? You don't have to follow him all the time. When he needs help, use your way of divination and the Tianji divine mirror to help him. The woman said, no problem, primogenitor. Even if you didn't say so, I would do so. Yin Er nodded seriously, but her eyes were full of surprise. After hesitating for a while, she couldn't help but ask, but primogenitor, why would you? She didn't have many friends. To her, Lin Tian was the most important person except for her master, the marvelous mathematician. As long as Lin Tian asked, she would do her best to help him. However, she couldn't understand why the primogenitor of the Tianji bloodline, who had never met Lin Tian, asked her to help Lin Tian with her way of divination and the Tianji divine mirror no matter what Lin Tian needed help. It felt as if the way of divination and the Tianji divine mirror were both created for Lin Tian. This was simply too bizarre. Buzz! With a light buzz, the way of light vibrated. The ancestor of divination's figure suddenly twisted, and his body became blurry. Yin Er was moved. Primoji, it's just a trace left behind. It won't last long. It's going to disappear soon. The woman looked at Yin Er. Use the Tianji divine mirror well. I believe that you will be perfect in the future. You will do your best to help him. I don't have much time left. Go out and... She looked outside the divine light circle and said, invite him in. Yin Er was stunned. She suppressed the strange feeling in her heart and bowed to the woman seriously. Primogenitor, I will remember your words. The ancestor of divination was a trace left behind countless years ago. She knew that she wouldn't be able to see this primogenitor in the future. She slowly stepped back and quickly retreated out of the divine light circle. The divine light circle shook slightly, but it was still there. For a moment, everyone in the White Tower turned to look at her. "You're finally out," Ling Yun said. Whooshing Crocodile looked at Yinya and was surprised. "Your aura is different. Oh, it's closer to the Great Tao." Lin Tian looked at Yinya. Naturally, he had also noticed this point. However, he did not say anything. How is it?" Master Godly Mathematician asked. "Yes, the primogenitor has merged the divine mirror into my consciousness. I've reached the nirvana realm." Yinya explained briefly. Then she looked at Lin Tian with a strange expression. The primogenitor wants to invite you in." "Huh?" Lin Tian Wei was stunned. She looked at the divine light circle in front of her. "Me? Going?" Whooshing Crocodile, Ling Yun, and Master Godly Mathematician were shocked. The ancestor of divination had invited Lin Tian into the divine light circle at this time. Obviously, he wanted to talk to Lin Tian alone. This was really strange. Why? The primogenitor is only a manifestation of the primogenitor's divine soul imprint. There's not much time left. Going quickly. Yinyabra looked at Lin Tian. Lin Tian's expression was a little strange. Did the ancestor of divination want to talk to him alone to ask about his physique? He paused. Although it was a little strange, he still nodded. He asked the little Taichu to stay outside for the time being. Then, he walked into the divine light circle alone. In the blink of an eye, he stepped into the divine light circle and disappeared from everyone's sight. Whooshing Crocodile and the others looked at each other in surprise. This Grandpa Crocodile feels strange again. That ancestor of divination seems to be special to Lin Tian. Whooshing Crocodile said, and looked at Yinya. "Little girl, what did your primogenitor say just now?" "Yes. What did that beautiful primogenitor say?" Ling Yun said and added, about Lin Tian. Even the marvelous mathematician couldn't help but look at Yinya. He was really curious about ancestor of divination's attitude toward Lin Tian. "Nothing. She just asked me to invite him in." Yinya shook her head and didn't say anything more about this matter. At this time, Lin Tian stepped into the divine light circle and saw ancestor of divination again. "Senior." He opened his mouth and was about to bow. After all, he was now talking to the other party alone. He had to be polite. However, at this time, the surrounding Tao lights surged and supported his body, making him unable to bow. This made him slightly suspicious. "Senior, what are you doing?" The woman opposite him, the primogenitor of the divination lineage, was stopping him from bowing. Ancestor of divination had lived for countless years. It was unknown how long her history was, but she looked to be 27 or 28 years old. Although she didn't have a real physical body, she was still intertwined with endless Tao light. She looked at Lin Tian. Her eyes were still gentle, but there was a kind of unfathomable light in the depths of her eyes. Her body became fainter and fainter. She looked at Lin Tian quietly. After a dozen breaths, she said, "The sleepless place has what you need." Then, under Lin Tian's surprised gaze, she bowed slightly to Lin Tian Wei. "Senior, you." Lin Tian was shocked. This woman, the primogenitor of the divination lineage, a powerful cultivator from countless years ago, was bowing to him. "Buzz!" The Tao light trembled. At this time, the woman's figure became even fainter and fainter, and cracks appeared on it. Following which, with a light hiss, the illusory figure directly collapsed and turned into strands of celestial spiritual light that directly dissipated. This, Lin Tian stood where he was, his face filled with shock and astonishment. The primogenitor of the divination lineage's attitude was too strange. At this time, light flickered around them. The divine light circle cracked and shattered, turning into wisps of Tao light that scattered in all directions. Whooshing Crocodile, Ling Yun, the divination master, Yin Yamur, and the others were in the White Pagoda. Although they couldn't see or hear what was happening inside the divine light circle, they were looking at it. At this time, As the divine light circle shattered and disappeared, the group's eyes naturally fell on Lin Tian. You're the only one left? Whooshing Crocodile stared at Lin Tian. The mark left by the primogeniture of divination has disappeared. Yes, it's gone. Lin Tiandao. Saying this, he was slightly stunned. He couldn't help but frown. He couldn't understand the primogeniture of divination's attitude. Chapter 1131. Lin Tian was perplexed. The founder of the divination sect, an expert from countless years ago, bowed to him. What was this? This attitude was so strange that he couldn't understand it. What's wrong, kid? What did the divination ancestor say to you? Why are you in such a daze? Whooshing Crocodile looked at Lin Tian and asked curiously. Yin Yip-er looked at Lin Tian with the strangest expression. She couldn't help but ask, what did the ancestor say to you? She was very concerned about what the divination ancestor had said to her. Now that she saw Lin Tian in a daze and frown after coming out, she was even more concerned. The marvelous mathematician and Ling Yun couldn't help but look at him. They were also very curious about why he was in such a daze. Nothing. We just had a casual chat. Lin Tian shook his head. He couldn't tell them that he was in a daze because the founder of the divination sect bowed to him. Is it really nothing? Whooshing Crocodile asked suspiciously. No, Lin Tian said. As he spoke, he frowned from time to time. It's obvious that there's something that you don't want to tell us. Ling Yun rolled his eyes. Lin Tian glanced at Ling Yun. It's really nothing. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He turned to Master God Diviner and Yinya and said, Seniors, Monsieur, can we leave now? Now that Yinya had obtained the celestial mystery divine mirror, it was time to leave this space. Yes. Yinya nodded to Lin Tian. She looked at the marvelous mathematician and said, Master, let's go out. Go ahead. I won't be leaving for the time being. The marvelous mathematician said. Yinya was stunned. Lin Tian was also slightly surprised. The marvelous mathematician was not leaving for the time being? Why, Master? Yinya asked. Master Godly Mathematician smiled and said, You're not inferior to me in terms of divination. Now that you've obtained the divine mirror of divination and reached the nirvana realm, you're far superior to me in every aspect. You can take charge of everything on your own. I can rest assured about you. Even if something bad happens in the future, you should be able to deal with it with your current ability. Master God Diviner smiled. Master was just thinking about it. This Heaven's Secret Dojo is very good, and so is this pagoda. Master decided to cultivate here for the time being. Cultivate here? Yinya was taken aback. But Master, if you stay here alone don't be like this. All these years, Master has always kept you by his side. Now that you've grown to such a height, it's time for you to go out and explore the world. It's decided. Master God Diviner had a kind expression on his face as he looked at Lin Tian and bowed slightly. Little brother, this old man and his disciple owe you a lot. However, if your encounters any difficulties in the future, please take care of her. After all, she is still young and inexperienced. Of course, if there's anything you need, or if there's anything she can help with, don't hesitate to ask. Yipper will definitely do her best. Senior, you're too polite. Didn't I say that Miss Yipper and I are friends? It's natural for me to help a friend. Lin Tiandao. Yin Yum and Master God Diviner bid farewell in the White Pagoda. Lin Tian bid farewell to Master God Diviner, and Whooshing Crocodile bid farewell to Ling Yun. After that, they walked out of the White Pagoda. Buzz! Yin Yip formed a seal and opened a vortex portal in front of the White Pagoda. Through the portal, they could see the valley outside. Master, Yiva will come back to see you regularly. Yin Yip waved to Master God Diviner one last time. Then, she stepped into the vortex portal with Lin Tian and the others and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Then, the vortex portal disappeared as well. Master God Diviner chuckled and walked back into the White Pagoda. He was the successor of the Heavenly Divination sect. Today, he had brought his disciple to complete the task entrusted to him by his master. He had completed the ancestral teachings and brought his disciple to the Heavenly Secret Dojo to obtain the Heavenly Secret Divine Mirror. His disciple, Yin Yup had obtained the heavenly secret divine mirror. Her heavenly secret divine arts had improved tremendously. In the future, she would be able to perfect it. Her cultivation had also entered the nirvana realm. Thinking of this, he suddenly felt more relaxed than ever. Within the immortal spirit mountain valley, the void hummed as a vortex-shaped portal opened, emitting a faint light. With a few swishing sounds, Lin Tian, Yin Yer, and the others stepped out of the void door one after another. "Oh, we're out again." Ling Yun stretched lazily. Lin Tian's expression was calm as he watched the vortex portal disappear. He looked out of the valley and said, "Let's go. Let's go." Whooshing Crocodile said. Yin Yer took one last look at the direction where the vortex door had disappeared. It was as if she was looking at her master in the Tianji dojo through that transparent space. Then she turned around and left with Lin Tian and the others. Then the group left. Soon, they were very far away. They were almost at the exit of the valley. Lin Tian's steps were very slow. Suddenly, he turned and asked Whooshing Crocodile, "Do you know where the sleepless ground is?" Previously, in the White Tower, the heavenly secret ancestor's attitude towards him had made him very puzzled. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't figure it out. Regarding this, he didn't think too much about it, because even if he racked his brains, he still couldn't figure it out. At this time, he thought of the matter that the heavenly secret ancestor had mentioned to him. The sleepless ground had something he needed. He didn't know what the heavenly secret ancestor was talking about, but since the heavenly secret ancestor had said so, he had reason to believe that it should be very important to him. As for the sleepless ground, he didn't know, so naturally, he could only ask Whooshing Crocodile. He felt that Whooshing Crocodile, who was familiar with the 10 Direction Sky domain, should know. The sleepless ground? Of course I know. It's located in the extreme west of the eastern domain of the 9th heaven. It occupies a very large area, and there are many ancient ruins and ancient temples. However, there is no sign of life. Moreover, from time to time, there are waves of death storms that can annihilate quasi-emperors. Therefore, it's also known as the Dead Zone. It's one of the most famous forbidden areas in this domain. It's very dangerous, and basically, not many people are willing to set foot in it. Whooshing Crocodile said. Lin Tian nodded. Whooshing Crocodile indeed knew. "Next, let's go to the sleepless ground," he said. "What?" Whooshing Crocodile stared at him. "What's wrong with you all of a sudden? Why do you always like to jump into forbidden areas? Is it fun?" Lin Tian glanced at it. "I'm going to look for something inside." "What are you looking for?" "I don't know yet." Lin Tian told the truth. Whooshing Crocodile was speechless, but in the end, it was too lazy to say anything because it knew Lin Tian too well. Once he decided on something, no one could pull him back. Of course, the most important thing was that now that little Taichu was by its side, it felt that it was not a big deal to venture into the dangerous forbidden area of the sleepless ground. Perhaps it could even obtain some incredible immortal fate. After all, it was rumored that there were many divine treasures and immortal treasures of astonishing value in there. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at Yin Yer. "What about you, monsieur? What do you plan to do after this?" Yin Yer looked at Lin Tian. "Oh, don't call me monsieur. It's too polite. Just call me Yer like master." Then she blinked and said, "Well, I want to follow you for the time being. Is that okay?" Chapter 1132. Upon hearing Yin Yer's words, Lin Tianwei was stunned. "Follow me?" After all, Yin Yer was a girl. He was slightly surprised that she would follow him at this time. "Yes." Yin Yer looked at Lin Tian. "Can I?" Previously at the Tianji dojo, the Tianji primogenitor had mentioned that she should follow Lin Tian in the future. In addition, her master, who had brought her up, was now cultivating in the Tianji dojo, leaving her alone. At this time, she could combine the two and follow Lin Tian, as the Tianji primogenitor had said. "Oh, little Lin, you're quite charming. A beautiful celestial spiritual body actually took the initiative to ask to follow you." Whooshing Crocodile clicked his tongue. "That's what I hate about him." Ling Yun's face was full of envy. Lin Tian glanced at the crocodile and Ling Yun, then looked at Yin Yer and said, "As long as you don't mind, there's no problem. I welcome you. However, to be honest, I have many enemies now. If you follow me, you might be in danger. For me and my master, you offended the legendary Saber Pavilion. Why would I be afraid to follow you just because you have many enemies? Moreover, didn't you say that we're friends? Since we're friends, then your enemies are my enemies. We should face them together. Yin-Ya blinked and said, well, how should I put it? My combat strength may be far inferior to yours, but I probably won't be a burden to you. Who knows, I might even be able to help you. As she spoke, she stretched out a slender finger and pointed at Lin Tian's neck. Behind. Look behind my neck. Lin Tianwei was stunned. Wuxing Crocodile and Ling Yun were very curious. They could not help but look behind Lin Tian's neck. Immediately, the crocodile and Ling Yun's expressions changed. At this time, they saw that a small ancient rune mark had appeared behind Lin Tian's neck. It was even smaller than an ant. What's this? Wuxing Crocodile's eyes widened. Lin Tian scanned the area with his divine thought and naturally discovered the ancient rune that had suddenly appeared. His face immediately turned solemn. Someone is chasing after you with a special artifact and your aura. Across a long distance, this person has silently left a mark on your body that is difficult to detect. With this mark, no matter where you go, you will be discovered. Yin-Ya said. This made Lin Tian's expression freeze again. He had not sensed this mark on his body at all. If it had not been for Yin-Ya's reminder, he probably would not have noticed it. Someone had actually done such a thing across the void, leaving a mark on him with a secret treasure, and then used it to track his whereabouts. This clearly showed that there was no goodwill. Leaving a mark on someone's body to track them across a long distance? Speaking of which, Uncle Crocodile remembers that Heavenly Demon Divine Sect seems to have a similar secret treasure. It seems to be called the Demonic Tracking Talisman. As long as you know a person's aura or appearance, you can integrate it into the Demonic Tracking Talisman. Then, you can pursue this person endlessly. Rumor has it that the ancestor of this lineage sacrificially refined it in his spare time, Wuxing Crocodile said. In addition, this thing seems to only be useful for people below the Emperor level. Upon hearing this, Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Heavenly Demon Divine Sect. As he spoke, golden divine light rushed out of his body, mixed with invisible Tao power, and rushed toward the ancient mark to shatter it. However, in the next moment, he was shocked again. With his current cultivation, he could not shatter the mark. Heavenly Demon Divine Sect, Desolation Divine Palace, Yin-Yang Holy Sect, and Immortal Sword Island each have a Chaos Realm Emperor. With the help of the Demonic Tracking Talisman, no one below the Chaos Emperor level can erase this mark. Let the little guy beside you do it. Strands of immortal spirit light intertwined between Yin-Ya's eyebrows. Apparently, she was doing some calculations. Hurry up. They're catching up. Although it's a little blurry, there is a seventh heaven emperor among them. Hearing this, Lin Tian and the others were shocked. Lin Tian quickly spoke and said to little Taichu above his head, "Little guy, erase it." A seventh heaven emperor realm expert was extremely terrifying. Moreover, there were 3 other emperors with him. Such a terrifying killing force could definitely sweep across the 8 desolations and suppress everything. Even little Taichu might not be able to block it. After all, although the little guy was extraordinary and had shocking strength, he had just been born not long ago. "Yeah!" Little Taichu shouted and sprinkled down a 6-colored divine light. It shrouded the small mark behind Lin Tian's neck and shattered it. In an unknown place, on a towering mountain, 4 figures walked together. Their bodies were covered in a hazy light screen. One of them was intertwined with demonic light, one was surrounded by sword light, and one was surging with yin and yang. All of them were surrounded by Emperor aura. The 4 figures were very fast, crossing a few hundred miles in one step. However, in the next moment, they suddenly stopped. "The aura has disappeared," one of them said in a deep voice. "And the other 3's eyes were cold." The 4 figures were an Emperor Old Ancestor of Heavenly Demon Divine Sect, Desolation Divine Palace, Yin-Yang Saint Sect, and Immortal Sword Island. The young sovereigns of these 4 top forces were killed by Lin Tiansha, causing the masters of these forces to be enraged. However, because Lin Tian had the emperor rank little Taichu beside him, the masters of these forces could only alert the emperor old ancestors of their respective factions. Then, the four great sects sent out their emperor rank experts. Of course, when people like them came out, it wasn't as simple as taking revenge for the prodigies of their descendants. It was because they knew that Lin Tian had the pure Yang flames, the eternal killing formation, the Sun Heart Sutra, and the High Heaven Sword Manual. The pure Yang flames could perfect the Heavenly Devil Divine Sex, Heavenly Devil Art. The eternal killing formation had great significance to the desolate divine palace of the Array Dao lineage. The Sun Heart Sutra was a divine treasure to the Yin-Yang divine sect that cultivated the Yin and Yang force. The High Heaven Sword Manual was also very useful to the Immortal Sword Island. The four emperor old ancestors of the four great sects walked out and gathered together. They used the demonic trace talisman of Heavenly Demon Divine Sect to carve a mark on Lin Tian's body. They wanted to take down Lin Tian in one fell swoop and take their respective treasures. However, to their surprise, right after the imprint was engraved, right when they were planning to chase after it, the imprint disappeared. It shouldn't be. Even if the little beast beside him was at the emperor rank and could forcefully erase the imprint, before it could erase it, it had to first detect its existence. Normally speaking, the imprint that the four of us used the Devil Trace talisman together was on his body. That emperor rank little beast shouldn't have been able to detect it. As for him, the man and the crocodile beside him, it was even more impossible for them to detect it. What exactly went wrong? The emperor of Heavenly Demon Divine Sect said in a deep voice. Dark demonic light intertwined in his eyes. In the ninth heaven, the mountains and rivers were majestic, and the sky was blue. Lin Tianyi and the others had already left the range of the Immortal Valley. Monsieur, I really have to thank you this time. Otherwise, the ending wouldn't be so good. Lin Tian said to Yin Yi-er. He didn't expect that the emperors of Heavenly Demon Divine Sect and the other three great forces had already come out to deal with him. Moreover, they used secret treasures like the demonic trace talisman to silently engrave a mark on his body, locking his whereabouts and hunting him down. This was a very dangerous thing to do. It can be said that if it weren't for Yin Yi-er's reminder, they would have to face the joint attack of four emperors in the blink of an eye. Among them, there is a seventh heavenly layer emperor. If that really happened, even with the help of the little Taichu, the ending wouldn't be very optimistic. Well, didn't we agree that you can just call me Yi-er? Miss Yi-er, it sounds very polite. Yin Yi-er said, she said, blinking her eyes lightly. Her aura was ethereal and filled with youthful vitality, which made her look very charming. Lin Tian couldn't help but smile. I didn't change it for a while. Yin Yi-er also smiled and said, then, can I follow you? You see, I'm still very useful, right? Lin Tian was a little embarrassed. He didn't expect Yin Yi-er to say such a witty thing like, I'm still very useful, right? As long as you don't mind. He smiled and said. Yin Yi-er nodded. Okay. Then I'll take it that you agree. She had a light smile on her face. Her face was rosy, and her face was beautiful. Together with her ethereal aura, she was very attractive. Whooshing Crocodile looked at Yin Yi-er and couldn't help but say, little girl, you sensed that Lin Tian was engraved with a demonic trace imprint from a distance, and then performed a reverse calculation. It involved four emperors, and one of them was a seventh heavenly layer emperor. Why do I feel that you weren't affected at all? Don't you have to pay a certain price for every calculation of your way of divine divination? Even if you have an immortal spiritual body and are protected by the great Tao, you should be slightly affected, right? But now, I feel that you didn't even use a bit of qi and blood. Master Ling was also thinking about this problem just now. Ling Yin said. Lin Tian looked at Yin Yi-er. Indeed, he didn't feel that Yin Yi-er was affected by the calculation of the four emperors. He paused and said, it should have something to do with the divine mirror. Yes, that's right. Yin Yi-er nodded and said, with my current cultivation, even if I have an immortal spiritual body, I have to pay a small price to calculate four emperors at the same time. However, with the protection of the divine mirror left behind by our ancestor, I won't be affected. As she spoke, she continued, "Previously, when I sensed the ancient rune mark behind Lin Tian's neck, it was also because of the warning from the Tianji divine mirror in my sea of consciousness. Therefore, I was able to know immediately. At that time, the emperors of the four major forces happened to leave that mark." Wuxing Crocodile nodded. "I see. It really is because of the divine mirror. This divine mirror is really extraordinary." "Yes, because its essence is..." Yinya opened her mouth, but immediately realized that she had misspoken. She quickly stopped herself and didn't continue. Its essence?" Ling Yin asked. "What's its essence?" Wuxing Crocodile also looked at her curiously. He heard Yinya mention the essence of the divine mirror, but she didn't finish her sentence. Yinya shook her head and smiled. Nothing. She really didn't want to casually talk about the essence of the divine mirror. Next to her, Lin Tian looked at Yinya. He thought that Yinya must have realized that the Tianji divine mirror was made from the Tianji primogenitor's original essence in a king-type skull. Otherwise, her expression wouldn't be like that. However, thinking about it, Yinya and the divine ancestor were both immortal spiritual bodies. It was normal for her to know the essence of the divine mirror after merging with it. Chapter 1133. The divine mirror of heavenly mystery was made by the ancestor of the heavenly mystery sect with half of her origin and the skull of the king body. There was nothing to hide about this. However, because the ancestor of the heavenly mystery sect was a woman, he felt that it was better to keep it a secret. "Let's go. We'll find a big sect with a teleportation formation and use it to go directly to the East region," Lin Tian said. Five Elemental Crocodile nodded and glanced around. The closest major power to here seems to be the Thunder-Sealing Immortal Sect. Like the Northern Purple Divine Sect, it's a second-level major power in this heaven realm. It has teleportation formations to the other three major domains. With our speed, we can reach there in about 2 days by flying. Then, we can use the sect's teleportation array to head to the eastern domain. "Then let's go," Lin Tiandao said. "Let's go," Ling Yin said. Wuxing Crocodile flew up and led the way to the Thunder-Sealing Immortal Sect. "Well, wait," Yinya suddenly spoke. "Actually, I was thinking about something just now." As she spoke, she pointed at little Tai Chu on top of Lin Tian's head and said, "This cute little guy is definitely in the Emperor realm. If that's the case, it seems like it can directly tear open space and bring us to the eastern region, right?" Lin Tian, Wuxing Crocodile, and Ling Yun were speechless. The two people and the crocodile opened their mouths and were stunned for a moment. That's right. Little Taichu could easily kill quasi-emperors, so it was definitely at the Emperor realm. It could definitely tear open space and teleport between the four domains. Why did they need to use someone else's teleportation formation? Why did they go to the Northern Purple Sect to borrow a teleportation formation when they came from the West region to the South region? I completely forgot about this. Lin Tiandao wanted to laugh bitterly. I forgot about it too. Wuxing Crocodile and Ling Yun were both embarrassed. I just thought about it too. Yinya said, "Well, last time, it must have been because we were being chased." For a moment, the three people and the crocodile looked embarrassed, and then they looked at little Tai Chu. "Yeah." Facing the gazes of the group of people, the little fellow blinked. Lin Tian coughed dryly. He took the coordinates of the sleepless land from Wuxing Crocodile and said to little Tai Chu, "Little guy, tear open a space portal. Let's go to this place." He told little Tai Chu the coordinates of the sleepless land. The little fellow cried out in a childish voice. The wings on its back shook, and the six-colored divine light intertwined. Instantly, a huge crack was torn open in the void. This fissure was about 10 feet wide. Looking through the fissure, one could vaguely see a reddish-yellow land. It was vast and boundless, and it was difficult to see the end. From time to time, black tornadoes would sweep across it. Is that the sleepless land? Lin Tian's expression turned cold. At this moment, he could feel an extremely cold aura just by looking through the huge crack in the void. He could not help but be shocked. One should know that he was now at the third sky of Nirvana realm. He was almost invincible under the half-step Emperor realm. Even so, when he looked at the reddish-yellow land, he still felt cold. Whooshing Crocodile nodded and said, "Yes, many quasi-emperors have died in there. It is truly a dead zone. It is indeed a little scary." Yinyabur looked at the opposite side and said. Lin Tian looked at the opposite side, calmed down, and said, "It is not a big deal. It is just a forbidden area." As he spoke, he took a step forward and walked into the huge crack in the void. Then, Yinyabur and the others followed closely behind and also entered the crack in the void. After that, in just an instant, the scene around them changed greatly. They directly crossed from the southern region to the sleepless land in the eastern region. Whoosh! In front of them, wisps of black wind swept past, bringing up yellow sand. "The sleepless land," Lin Tian whispered. At this moment, when they were close to the sleepless land, the cold feeling from before became even clearer. It made him feel as if he was in an icy abyss. His powerful body could not help but tremble slightly. After a pause, he looked inside and said, "Let's go." As he spoke, he directly stepped forward and entered the sleepless land. The ancestor of the divination sect said that there was something in the sleepless land that he needed. He believed that the ancestor would not lie to him. Moreover, he believed that the thing must be very important to him. Yinyabur followed behind him and also stepped into the sleepless land. Whooshing Crocodile and Ling Yun naturally did not hesitate and also followed them. In the blink of an eye, the group entered the sleepless land. They felt that the air was even colder. Moreover, the black wind in the sleepless land also became more violent, blowing through the void and making buzzing sounds. Damn, it is indeed an evil land. It is so creepy. Ling Yun shrunk his neck. Lin Tian glanced at him and said, "In any case, you are a Nirvana realm cultivator. Can you be more mature?" Master Ling says what he feels. This is called being realistic. Do you understand? Ling Yun rolled his eyes. "Understand your sister," Lin Tian said casually and continued to walk forward. The space in the sleepless land was a little gloomy. A faint black fog floated in the air. As the group walked deeper and deeper, the coldness in the air became heavier and heavier. The air itself felt as if it was about to be frozen. "Boy, I asked you before. What are you looking for here? Don't tell me you really don't know?" Whooshing Crocodile asked. "I don't know." Lin Tian told the truth. Then he continued, "However, it doesn't matter. The specific range has been fixed in this sleepless land. That is enough. When I get close to it, it should have a special reaction." Whooshing Crocodile. Walking in this sleepless land, Lin Tian walked at the front. Half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. In this half an hour, the group walked for a long time. Gradually, dilapidated buildings and temples appeared in their field of vision. There were many withered yellow bones and weapons scattered on the ground. Some of them even sank into the yellow sand, looking very desolate. Not to mention the bones and weapons on the ground, these dilapidated buildings seemed to have a very long history, at least more than 100,000 years. Ling Yun said, "Of course, the history of each of the forbidden areas in the ninth heaven is a mystery. It is difficult to say exactly how long they have been here, but what is certain is that they are definitely at least 100,000 years old." Whooshing Crocodile said, "These dilapidated buildings fell in this sleepless land from the beginning. Naturally, they are more than 100,000 years old." Lin Tian glanced at the dilapidated buildings and the skeletons on the ground in front of him, but he didn't care. He released his divine sense to sense the surroundings and walked deeper into the sleepless land. However, in the next moment he suddenly stopped. "What's wrong?" Yinyur asked. Whooshing Crocodile and Ling Yun also looked over, curious about why Lin Tian suddenly stopped. "Ga." It was also at this moment that a soft sound came out like the sound of bones twisting. Not far away, a skeleton shook and slowly stood up. Then, more skeletons moved and stood up one after another. In the blink of an eye, there was a dense mass of skeletons. Some were missing hands, some were broken legs, and some didn't even have skulls. However, they all exuded a chilling aura. It was like an army of dead skeletons surrounding the group in the middle. This whooshing crocodile's eyes widened. These skeletons that were originally scattered on the ground actually stood up at this moment. A metallic sound appeared. A gray-colored skeleton covered in cracks bent its body and picked up a rusty broken blade from the yellow sand. Its bones emitted a cracking sound as it pounced towards Lin Tian. In an instant, it had crossed a distance of 100 feet. Damn, it's just a skeleton. How can it move so fast? Ling Yin cursed. Lin Tian looked at the skeleton charging at him calmly. With a slight movement of his mind, a heaven-piercing sword radiance appeared around his body. It let out a sonorous sword cry and slashed at the skeleton. In the blink of an eye, it landed on the skeleton. Ding! A crisp sound resounded. The golden sword light seemed to have struck an extremely hard divine metal, and strands of sparks sprayed out before shattering. It actually didn't injure the skeleton that pounced over in the slightest. This whooshing crocodile and the others were shocked. They were very clear about Lin Tian's current cultivation. He was at the third sky of Nirvana realm, and his fighting strength was extremely strong. There weren't many people under the half-step Emperor realm that could be his opponent. However, Lin Tian's heaven-piercing sword radiance was blocked by a skeleton that looked like it would shatter with a gust of wind. It actually didn't shatter. Even Lin Tian himself was shocked. Although that heaven-piercing sword radiance was casually slashed out by him, its power wasn't small. Even if a divine weapon was hit by it, it would definitely shatter into pieces. However, it wasn't able to destroy this gray skeleton that was already covered in cracks. It wasn't even able to leave a mark on the skeleton's body. Whoosh! The sound of air breaking rang out. The gray skeleton wielded the broken sword, rushed in front of Lin Tian in the blink of an eye, and slashed down. In an instant, with a cracking sound, the space in front of Lin Tian was split open. The strength of the sword was shocking. Lin Tian leaned to the side and dodged the sword. Then he raised his right hand and used his elbow to fiercely press down on the skeleton's skull. This attack wasn't light. With a bang, the gray skeleton collapsed to the ground. Then Lin Tian raised his leg and stomped down. Because the heaven-piercing sword radiance didn't even leave a mark on the skeleton's body, he directly used 90% of his physical strength. With a cracking sound, the gray skeleton was shattered into pieces. However, in the next moment, his expression changed again. The gray skeleton that he had stepped on twisted around his feet, and the shattered bones actually gathered together in the blink of an eye. It reformed into a skeleton body, and with a flip of its body, it slashed at him with a saber. This can reassemble? Ling Yin opened his eyes wide. Lin Tian frowned. He clenched his right hand into a fist and met the gray skeleton that had reformed. This attack carried a trace of the power of the Chaos Emperor's fist. The gray skeleton was smashed into pieces. Bone ashes scattered all over the sky. The broken sword rolled down and stabbed into the yellow sand not far away. However, in the next moment, his expression changed again. The bone ashes that filled the sky actually reversed themselves and condensed into a gray skeleton in front of him, just like before. This time, even the whooshing crocodile was shocked. It's still not dead? With a clang, the gray skeleton pulled out the broken sword from the yellow sand. The bones of the skeleton cracked, and with a whoosh, it pounced on Lin Tian again. Chapter 1134. There was a large number of skeletal soldiers, and they were densely packed. In the blink of an eye, they rushed to the front of the group, bringing with them a cold and penetrating aura. It was like an army of the dead from hell. As they moved, yellow sand filled the sky. Lin Tian formed a sword with his right hand and turned it. In an instant, a sky full of golden sword aura was summoned. It was like a rain of swords falling in all directions. This time, the sword light was very powerful. In the blink of an eye, it shattered the gray skeleton that was pouncing on him with the broken sword. Then, the other skeletons that were rushing over from all directions also suffered. The skeleton army that was rushing at the front was all split into pieces. Ga! 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 The sound of bones twisting was heard. Around them, the skeletons that were shattered by Lin Tian began to reassemble. Soon, they appeared again. This they can't be killed? Ling Yun was surprised. Let Grandpa Crocodile try. Wuxing Crocodile said. It directly opened up the great 5 elements technique and turned into a 5 elements tornado, crushing many skeletons on the spot. However, in the next moment, the shattered skeletons reassembled and quickly stood up again. They charged towards the group of people. They really can't be killed? Wuxing Crocodile stared. The great 5 elements technique was its strongest technique now. The skeletons were densely packed, and all of them were intertwined with a cold aura. As if they had rushed out from hell, they surrounded the surroundings and attacked the group of people at the same time. The way they attacked was very simple. They waved their skeletal arms and legs like ordinary warriors. However, the killing power was very terrifying. Every attack made the void tremble and buzz. Lin Tian made his move. A sword aura hurricane was created, and all the skeletons that rushed in front of them were blown away. One by one, they were shattered. However, this still did not have any substantial effect. In the next moment, the shattered skeletons reassembled as if they could never be killed. They rushed over again, which made him frown. The law of the undead is entangled in this place, and it is this law of the undead that is affecting them. As long as the great path of the undead remains, these bone armies will never die. Yin Yubber said as celestial spirit light intertwined around her body. She said to Lin Tiandao, use sealing techniques to erase them. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. He raised his right hand and summoned the 4-symbol seal, enveloping another bone army that was charging towards him. Immediately, the bones of the bone army trembled violently, as if they were struggling. Then, all of them collapsed. Their originally hard bones were like tofu, shattering into pieces after falling to the ground. They were unable to reform for a while. Effective. Wuxing Crocodile and Ling Yun were both moved. Lin Tian's eyes flashed with surprise, but he quickly calmed down. He formed a seal with both hands and summoned the 4-symbol seal with an even stronger divine power. He summoned a huge Tao diagram of the 4 symbols, which covered all the bone army in this place. For a time, the sound of cracking could be heard continuously. In the blink of an eye, the group of bone soldiers were all shattered into pieces. Instantly, the place became quiet. Impressive, he looked at Yin Yer and smiled. Earlier, he had attacked them several times in a row, but to no avail. Yin Yer, on the other hand, had found the bone army's weakness in the blink of an eye. As expected of the immortal spirit body, who was proficient in divination, Wuxing Crocodile said. Yin Yer chuckled and said modestly, "It's nothing." Boom! The ground suddenly shook, interrupting Yin Yer's words. Gusts of strong wind suddenly appeared and swept in all directions. As far as the eye could see, the path that the group of people had come from was filled with an astonishing storm of gray fog. Wherever it passed, the surrounding rocks and dust were all swept up. The void was instantly annihilated, and an extremely terrifying aura was mixed in the surroundings. A storm of death. Even a quasi-emperor won't be able to survive if they're swept up in it. Wuxing Crocodile's expression changed. "Let's go," Lin Tian said. This gray storm made even his heart palpitate. It was indescribably oppressive. Immediately, the group of people took a step forward decisively. They were all very fast, and in the blink of an eye, they were thousands of feet away. Behind them, the gray storm seemed to be moving very slowly, but in fact, it was moving very fast. Moreover, it carried a destructive force. After a few ruined buildings were submerged, they were directly crushed into dust. Then, the gray storm surged behind the group of people in the blink of an eye. It was like a torrent of death that rushed out of hell. Lin Tian waved his hand, and a large number of sword rays slashed out. They turned into a golden sword rain and attacked the back, stopping the storm from approaching. However, the gray storm was too terrifying. The sword rays that he slashed out were directly crushed. It was useless. Rumble! The void roared, and the gray storm swept past. In the blink of an eye, the group of people was covered in it. Suddenly, the group of people felt their bodies tremble. The gray fog seemed to be pervasive and directly entered their bodies, causing them to feel a piercing pain. Their flesh seemed to be corroding. No, we can't stop it. Whooshing Crocodile gritted his teeth. On the other side, Lin Tian propped up the Great Dao Law and King's territory, but it was useless. They could not stop the gray storm of death. Little guy. In the end, he could only open his mouth and let little Taichu take action. Little Taichu called out in his childish voice. The six-colored divine light flashed and directly propped up a six-colored light screen, enveloping Lin Tian. At the same time, it also protected Yin Yer, Whooshing Crocodile, and Ling Yun, directly isolating them from the gray fog of death. For a moment, the group of people heaved a sigh of relief. How terrifying, Yin Yer could not help but say. When this gray storm of death swept over, her divine divination Dao was completely useless. This storm of death was really too terrifying. No one below the Emperor level could stop it. Lin Tian was secretly shocked when he saw this deathly fog. He finally understood just how frightening this sleepless place was. If it were not for little Alpha Primordium, they would have likely met with misfortune after being swept into this deathly storm. Whoosh! A black wind swept over, and a gray fog covered the area. At this time, the group was completely shrouded in the storm of death. Gradually, they could not see their surroundings clearly, and their divine senses were completely suppressed. This is troublesome. Once this storm of death appears, it is said that it will last for at least 3 months. During this process, our divine senses are suppressed, and it is difficult to see clearly. It is almost impossible to move. We can only stay in place. Whooshing Crocodile said helplessly. Don't worry and don't stay in place. Just follow me. Lin Tiandao. Little Alpha Primordium lay on his head, conjuring 6 divine lights to protect them all within. At that moment, Yi Fuqian opened his divine eye of delusion breaker. For a moment, faint draconic light appeared, condensing into rings of draconic patterns on his pupils. Suddenly, his blurred vision became clear, and everything around him could be seen clearly. Whooshing Crocodile's eyes lit up. All right, I forgot that you still have this pair of divine eyes that can see through many illusions. Let's go. Lin Tiandao. Little Taichu protected them with the 6-colored divine light. He led the way, and his divine eyes of delusion breaker could see through everything as they walked into the depths. In this sleepless land, there was reddish-yellow sand everywhere. The group walked into the depths, and in the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Rumble! On this day, the sleepless land shook violently. Sand and dust swept up and covered the sky. Even though little Taichu held up the 6-colored divine light to protect them, they still could not help but feel a chill and suppression at this time. This storm of death has become even more terrifying. Yin Yer said, That's right. Lin Tian nodded. After opening his divine eyes of delusion breaker, not only could he see through a lot of things, but his spiritual perception had also increased a lot. At this time, he could clearly feel that the gray storm of death had become more terrifying. It was more than twice as terrifying as 3 days ago. Little guy, do you feel any pressure? He asked little Taichu. Yeah. The little guy called out in a childish voice, lying on his head lazily. Obviously, he did not feel any pressure at all. Lin Tianyi smiled and thought that he was worried for nothing. After all, the little guy was at least comparable to a 3rd Sky Emperor. Although this storm of death was terrifying, it was still impossible for the little guy to feel any pressure. He shook his head and then continued to walk into the depths of the sleepless land. Whoa! In the sleepless land, the dark wind blew even louder. The gray mist became thicker and thicker, and the space was being corroded inch by inch. Lin Tian and the others were protected by little Taichu's 6-colored divine light, so they were not threatened. They continued to walk into the depths of the space. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. On this day, an ancient temple suddenly appeared in front of them. It was about 3 zhang tall and it looked very shabby. The yellow temple door was full of holes, as if it could be broken by a gust of wind. Suddenly, the group was moved. When the storm of death swept past, anything that came into contact with it would be annihilated immediately. However, at this time, this shabby ancient temple in front of them was preserved without any damage. Let's go in and take a look. Lin Tiandao's eyes shone brightly. To be able to survive such a storm of death without any damage, it was enough to show that this ancient temple was not ordinary. Let's go. There might be some divine treasures inside. Whooshing Crocodile's eyes shone brightly. Then, under the protection of little Taichu's six-color divine light, the group quickly entered the ancient temple. As soon as they entered the temple, the group suddenly felt relaxed. The oppressive feeling they had when they were outside had disappeared without a trace. Little guy, put away the divine light for now, Lin Tian said to little Taichu. At this time, when they entered the ancient temple, the oppressive feeling from before had disappeared, and there was no trace of the gray mist around. Even without the little guy's six-color divine light protecting them, they did not need to worry about anything. The little guy responded and slowly put away the six-color divine light. It was not until this time that the group really began to look at the ancient temple. They found that the space in the temple was not big. It was only about 100 square meters, but it seemed very empty. There were 9 strange statues standing there. Some of them had a human head and a beast body. Some had a beast head and a human body. And some had a beast body. Although they were all made of mud, they gave people a very real feeling. These statues look... Why do they feel like the totems worshipped by people in the prehistoric era? Whooshing Crocodile muttered. Chapter 1135. A genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Listening to Whooshing Crocodile's words, Lin Tian was slightly moved. He was naturally no stranger to the word totem. It was rumored that in the most ancient times, it was a powerful creature that was respected by the people of that time because it helped to resist all kinds of natural disasters. People gradually worshipped the statues of these powerful creatures. Finally, they were honored as totems and worshipped for generations. Are you sure that this is a totem statue? He was a little surprised. In fact, since ancient times, after such a long time, no one worshipped the totems of that time. Even now, no one mentioned those ancient totems. At this time, these statues in the ancient temple in front of him were somewhat surprising to him that Whooshing Crocodile said that they might be totem statues from the ancient times. Yin Ye-er and Ling Yun obviously also knew about the existence of totems. They were very curious and looked at Whooshing Crocodile together. It should be right. Grandpa Crocodile once saw records of 2 or 3 of these statues in an unofficial history book. I have a slight impression of them. The 5 Elements Crocodile looked around and continued. Moreover, there's nothing special about this ancient temple other than these 9 statues. However, it was able to withstand the terrifying storm of death outside. It's enough to show that it's related to these 9 statues. They're definitely the totem statues that were worshipped by the people of the ancient times. Ling Yun was puzzled and said, "But you also said that this is just a statue. In essence, it is just stone and soil. It is not a totem itself. It should not be able to withstand the attack of the death storm outside, right?" This Whooshing Crocodile was speechless. For a moment, he did not know what to say. It seemed that what Ling Yun said was not wrong. There's a saying. Lin Tian looked at the 9 statues and said, "When something is worshipped by people for a long period of time, it will gradually produce a special kind of energy called the power of will. It's a kind of miraculous energy that is different from divine power, demonic power, and true yuan. It has many miraculous effects." When he was living on that blue star, he had studied some Buddhist scriptures. The word willpower was a kind of Buddhist scripture in the Buddhist scriptures. Power of will? Yin Ye-er, Whooshing Crocodile, and Ling Yun all showed strange expressions. This was the first time they had heard the words power of will. Whooshing Crocodile looked at the 9 statues. "You're saying that within these 9 totem statues, there is a mysterious power of wish that has been condensed. It is this power of wish that has protected this ancient temple and withstood the storm of death that could annihilate even quasi-emperors. I'm just guessing. Lin Tiandao. Buzz. All of a sudden, the seven-colored divine sword at the bottom of his sea of consciousness trembled slightly. Seven-colored light overflowed, floating in his sea of consciousness like water ripples. The direction of the ripples was actually the 9 totem statues in front of him. This caused his expression to change. The seven-colored divine sword in his sea of consciousness actually reacted at this time and pointed at the 9 totem statues, which surprised him a little. At the same time, this scene also shocked him. This was because once the divine sword reacted and pointed at something, the thing that was pointed at would definitely be extraordinary. He was already familiar with this. "What's wrong?" Yinya asked. She saw his strange expression. Wuxing Crocodile and Ling Yun naturally also noticed this. They tilted their heads and looked at him curiously. Lin Tian shook his head and did not say anything for the time being. He looked at the 9 statues and slowly walked closer. The surface of the 9 statues was already covered in dust. There were even strands of cobwebs in some places. As he approached them, the 7-colored light from the divine sword in his sea of consciousness became even more intense. This caused his expression to change again. The 9 statues in front of him were definitely extraordinary. Looking at the 9 statues, he stretched out his right hand and placed it on one of the statues. He wanted to first wipe off the dust on it and then examine it carefully. However, the moment his right hand landed on the statue, the sword mark in the center of his right hand suddenly lit up. Then, the statue trembled, and a circle of pure, white light surged out from it. Suddenly, Lin Tian was shocked. Yinya and the others also changed their expressions. Buzz! The pure white light surged out from the totem statue that his right hand had touched, bringing with it a kind of holy aura. Then, in the next moment, the other 8 totem statues trembled, and rays of light surged out from inside them. Love Go Little say, could these rays of light were all pure white and had a holy aura. Once they appeared, they all surged towards Lin Tian, as if they were attracted by something. In the blink of an eye, Lin Tian was completely enveloped in it. Could this be the power of will that Bratlin was talking about? Ling Yun's eyes widened. This kind of power really exists. Beside him, Wuxing Crocodile and Yinya were also shocked. Buzz! The pure white light surged and let out a buzzing sound. It continuously surged out from the 9 statues, almost filling up the entire ancient temple. Lin Tian was enveloped in it, and he felt all the pores on his body open up. His internal organs started to beat faster, and the nameless Great Tao's precepts started to boil. His body started to absorb the pure white light involuntarily. Then his essence, energy, and spirit started to become stronger rapidly. His cultivation also started to rise at an alarming speed. He looked at the 9 statues and saw the strands of pure white light surging out. He couldn't help but be shocked. He had seen the words power of will in the Buddhist scriptures. Even though he said that the 9 statues might have gathered this kind of power, it was only a guess. After all, even though the Buddhist scriptures had recorded the words power of will, it was still somewhat illusory. But now, as the pure white light continued to surge out from the 9 statues, he was truly shocked. His strong intuition told him that this seemed to be the power of will. The 9 statues shook, and more white light surged out. It was incomparably pure. It was countless times purer than the spiritual energy of the divine meridian level. It didn't contain any impurities at all. It was like the source of holy light at the beginning of the world. The holy aura was extremely strong. Lin Tian was immersed in this kind of light. His internal organs started to beat faster, and his essence, energy, and cultivation increased even more rapidly. The divine sword suddenly reacted because of this kind of power of will. He was moved. He looked at the white light around him and was shocked. He was in a daze. It wasn't until 8 breaths later that he came to his senses. Then, he took a deep breath and quickly calmed himself down. Then, he looked at Yin and the others. You guys come too. he said. As he said so, a gentle golden divine light rushed out of his body and pulled Yin Yum and the others to his side. Suddenly, Yin Yum whooshing crocodile, and Ling Yun were all enveloped by the white light. They couldn't help but tremble. What pure energy! This whooshing crocodile couldn't help but exclaim. After being pulled into the range of the white light by Lin Tian, it felt that every pore on its body opened up in an instant. Its meridians and internal organs started to beat faster, and its essence, energy, and spirit became stronger rapidly. At the same time, Yin Yub and Ling Yun naturally had the same feeling. The shock in their eyes became more intense. Refine them and cultivate. Lin Tiandao. The energy contained in the white light was too dense and pure. It was many times more shocking than the divine pulse. As he said so, he said to little Taichu, "Little guy, help protect us." The little guy was definitely in the Emperor realm. Moreover, it had surpassed the third heaven of the Emperor realm. At this height, the white light here shouldn't be of much use to the little guy. After all, there wasn't much of it. "Yeah." Hearing this, little Taichu called out in its childish voice. It left Lin Tian's head and flew to the side, waiting quietly. Lin Tian was relieved. With little Taichu protecting him, he didn't need to worry about anything in the following cultivation. Immediately, he nodded at Yin Yu and the others. Then he closed his eyes and sat down on the ground. He circulated the Heart Sutra of Sun, causing the white light to flow into his body faster. Under his control, it flowed to every part of his body. The light was extremely pure. After it entered his body, the refining process was much simpler than the spiritual qi. It could be absorbed by his blood, flesh, and meridians in the blink of an eye. For a moment, the golden divine light outside his body gradually became denser. His essence, qi, and cultivation increased even more rapidly. At the same time, in other directions, the auras outside, Yin and the others also surged at an extremely fast speed. Little Taichu floated to the side of the temple and looked at them quietly. Then, its eyes fell on Lin Tian. Its big, watery eyes blinked from time to time. Outside Lin Tian's body, the golden divine light became stronger and stronger. It quickly absorbed the white light from the 9 statues to cultivate. Just like that, a month passed in the blink of an eye. 1 month later, on this day, his aura started to weaken. His powerful body was slowly petrified. Since he entered the Nirvana realm, he started his third metamorphosis. He was moving toward the 4th heaven of the Nirvana realm. On the other hand, he was naturally able to sense such a thing, and he immediately made himself carefully concentrate while his Tao heart became extremely calm. Gradually, his aura became weaker and weaker. More and more parts of his body started to petrify, from his legs to his waist, from his waist to his chest, from his chest to his hands, then to his neck, and then to his head. Finally, his entire body turned into gray stone. At this time, his aura had almost completely disappeared. It was as if he had been annihilated. However, at the center of his stony eyebrows, a bright light could be seen. It was like an inextinguishable saint's source, steadily protecting his life. Soon, he maintained the stone body. Another month passed. On this day, as a crisp sound was heard, cracks began to appear on his stone body. In the blink of an eye, it was completely shattered. A new body sat cross-legged in it. Its skin was crystal clear, as if it was made of glass. It was flowing with a faint light. 4th heaven of the Nirvana realm. He opened his eyes, and 2 rays of light flashed through his eyes. Chapter 1136. During the 3rd Nirvana in the Nirvana realm, the old body would be shed and a new body would be born. At this moment, Lin Tian clearly felt that he had become stronger. His flesh, blood, bones, meridians, sea of consciousness, and spirit had all undergone a qualitative leap. Buzz! Inside the ancient temple, the white light was still surging out from the 9 totem statues, but the speed had slowed down. Obviously, at this time, there was not much pure energy left in the 9 totem statues. Lin Tian shifted his gaze to Yin Yu and the others. At this time, They had all reached the second level of nirvana from the early stage of nirvana. They had already completed the first nirvana transformation and were charging towards the third level of nirvana. He then looked at the little Taichu beside him. The little guy squeaked at him, which made him smile. Because the white light was still overflowing from the 9 totem statues, he did not immediately stand up. Instead, he took a deep breath and calmed his heart. He once again absorbed the pure energy and circulated the Heart Sutra of Sun to refine and cultivate. Buzz! Suddenly, golden divine light intertwined around his body again. His essence, energy, and spirit continued to rise, and his cultivation shot up again. As such, he calmed his heart and focused, seriously absorbing the pure, white light here to refine. As the golden divine light surrounded him, he looked somewhat dignified, as if a supreme god was sitting there. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months had passed. On this day, the aura outside Lin Tian's body became extremely strong, but then it quickly declined to the bottom. His sturdy body slowly began to petrify again. After the last time, it was the 4th nirvana. This time around, the nirvana process lasted for a long time. It lasted for a full year before a crack appeared on the stone body. Soon after, the crack spread in all directions like a spider web, and the stone body began to slowly shatter. Soon, dozens of breaths passed. The stone body on the outside was completely shattered, revealing his new body inside. It was also at this time that Lin Tian opened his eyes. A hurricane formed on its own, with him as the center, spreading out in all directions. The 5th level of nirvana, he muttered to himself. He clenched his fists and felt an even more turbulent power surging through his body. His body had become even more solid, his soul had become even more powerful, and his sea of consciousness had become even vaster. His overall combat strength had undergone an earth-shaking change. He's finally awake. Whooshing Crocodile's voice sounded. This nirvana metamorphosis really took a long time. Even Uncle Ling thought that you couldn't make it. Ling Yin said, the 5th level of the nirvana realm. How powerful! Yin Yin looked at Lin Tian and spoke. Her eyes were filled with a strange light. The light in this ancient temple was extremely dim. 2 people and 1 alligator had already stopped cultivating half a year ago. All of them had reached the 3rd sky of Nirvana realm, and their cultivation had improved tremendously. When they woke up, Lin Tian had maintained the stone body he had when he was undergoing nirvana. Only now did the stone body shatter, revealing the new body within. Lin Tian looked at the group of people and smiled faintly. He stood up from the ground. Following his movement, the space in this ancient temple was distorted, and the sound of wind and thunder could be heard. Whooshing Crocodile and the others were moved. This point alone was enough to show how strong Lin Tian's current body was. At the side of the ancient temple, little Taichu cried out in a childish voice. It flapped its wings and landed on Lin Tian's head. Lin Tian smiled and looked around. The white light overflowing from the 9 totem statues had disappeared. The death storm outside had also disappeared. The space was very quiet. Therefore, he couldn't help but look at the 9 statues again. I really didn't expect that the 9 totem statues would contain such a shocking amount of energy. I don't know how many times stronger than the Holy Range. We have really made a big profit this time. Ling Yun bared his teeth. With the help of the white light that gushed out from the 9 statues, he, Whooshing Crocodile, and Yin Yipper had each advanced from the early stage of Nirvana realm to the 3rd stage of Nirvana realm. Lin Tian had advanced from the 3rd stage of Nirvana realm to the 5th stage of Nirvana realm. Kid, is this really the power of will that you mentioned? Whooshing Crocodile tilted its head and looked at Lin Tian. The pure white light gushing out from the 9 totem statues had greatly improved their cultivation. Even now, it was still a little surprised. Lin Tian looked at the 9 statues and said, it should be the power of will. He was actually very shocked by the power that surged out from the 9 totem statues. However, combined with some of the records he had read in the Buddhist scriptures and his intuition, he believed that this extremely pure white light was the pure power of will that was generated from the worship of these totems in the past. It was condensed in these totem statues. He looked at the 9 statues. At this time, the dust on their surface had disappeared. However, there were more cracks on the statues. They were like spider webs that covered the surface of the statues. It seemed like they could break at any time. He knew that this was probably because the power of will that existed in the 9 statues had been absorbed by them. He bowed to the 9 statues. Regardless of whether it was because they had absorbed the boundless power of will from the 9 statues, causing cracks to appear on them, or because they were the statues of totems that had protected the people in the past, they were all worthy of his bow. Kid Lin, is this the power of will that you are looking for? Ling Yin asked. Lin Tian shook his head and said no. He didn't know what the Tianji Primogenitor said, that there was something he needed here, but he knew that it must be very important to him. But this kind of wish energy was obviously not important to him, and he could do without it. Okay, the death storm has disappeared. Let's go. He called out to the 2 people and the crocodile and immediately walked out of the ancient temple. Yinya, and the others naturally didn't hesitate and followed him out. Crack! At this time, a crisp sound was heard. It was very abrupt. The group of people were all shocked. They all looked behind them and saw that a huge crack had suddenly appeared at the bottom of the ancient temple. However, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that an extremely cold aura was spreading out from the crack. It was as if a peerless, ferocious beast was about to awaken from its slumber. Is there a ferocious beast under this ancient temple? The group changed their expressions. Boom! The ancient temple shook. More cracks appeared and spread rapidly in all directions. The bottom of the temple cracked and shattered. Then, an even colder aura rushed out. It was as if the door of hell had been opened. The aura of death was pressing. Let's retreat first, Lin Tian said in a low voice. In an instant, the 3 people and the crocodile stepped forward and left the ancient temple. Almost as soon as they left the ancient temple, the entire ancient temple collapsed, splashing yellow sand all over the sky. Then, with another loud bang, the entire ancient temple collapsed. Large cracks spread in all directions, revealing a huge black hole. A shocking aura of death spread out from below. Clang! 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 The sound of armor colliding rang out from the black hole. Soon, more than a dozen humanoid figures stepped out from the black hole. All of them were covered in black armor, and their bodies were surrounded by wisps of dark Yin Qi. They looked like real Yin soldiers from hell. This is... Lin Tian's expression changed immediately, and Wuxing Crocodile also showed a look of shock. They were too familiar with this kind of armor. When they were in the 5th heaven, the supreme Yin Temple appeared and absorbed them. At that time, in the heavenly palace of death of the supreme Yin Temple, they encountered the same kind of armor. This, 1 person and 1 crocodile, did not expect to see the same kind of armored soldiers in the heavenly palace of death in this place. Moreover, these armored soldiers were obviously much stronger than those in the heavenly palace of death. You know this kind of thing? Next to them, Ling Yin saw the expression on Lin Tian and Wuxing Crocodile's faces and asked curiously. At the same time, Yin tilted her head and looked over. I've seen it before. Lin Tian nodded and briefly told them about entering the heavenly palace of death of the supreme Yin Temple. For a moment, Ling Yun and Yin Ye were both shocked. Supreme Yin Temple? That is one of the most ancient and terrifying life forbidden zones in the legends. Since ancient times, who knows how many strong people have been sucked in. It is said that even many Chaos Emperors have died in there. You actually walked out of there alive? Ling Yin stared at them. We were just lucky. Lin Tian. He was not being modest, but was speaking the truth. At that time, in the heavenly palace of death, even the book of life and death had jumped out. It could be said that it was a dead end. If not for the mysterious stone coffin suddenly breaking through the space and creating a huge hole in the heavenly palace of death that led to the outside world, he and Wuxing Crocodile would definitely have died in there. Clang! The sound of weapons rang out. Over a dozen figures were completely covered in armor. They held rusty battle spears in their hands. They discovered Lin Tian's group the moment they stepped out. Like killing puppets, They directly waved their battle spears and charged towards the group. Instantly, with a crack, the space in this place was shattered by the dozen armored soldiers' battle spears. Their murderous intent was terrifying. They are comparable to Nirvana realm fighters. Whooshing Crocodile was shocked. Lin Tian also saw the power of the dozen armored soldiers, but he did not care. After all, he was in the Nirvana realm and had just reached the fifth heaven of Nirvana realm. Immediately, he raised his right hand and punched forward. Dong! The void rumbled, as if a bolt of lightning had exploded in this space. The power of the punch was terrifying. In an instant, cracking sounds could be heard as the armor of the dozen or so armored soldiers shattered. Inside were extremely pale human males. Their eyes were numb, their faces as white as paper, and they exuded a thick aura of death. Immediately, as they were exposed to the air, the human men in the armor were instantly turned into ashes. Just like the armored soldiers in the heavenly palace of death, they are all human men. Once the armor is broken, the humans inside will be turned into ashes instantly. The demonic light in the five elements crocodile's eyes was extremely dense. He was both shocked and suspicious. It seems like they were suppressed under this ancient temple by a strong practitioner in the past, using the totem statues in this ancient temple. However, why would this ancient temple suppress such armored soldiers? Could it be that the armored soldiers in the heavenly palace of death once walked out of the heavenly palace and killed thousands of creatures on their own? This has never been recorded in the history books. From what he knew, the extreme Yin Temple was the most ancient forbidden zone for life. Every time it appeared, it would forcefully suck in a large number of cultivators. The cultivators that were sucked in had a hard time escaping. However, there were no records of evil spirits coming out of the extreme Yin Temple to kill all living things in the world. However, the scene in front of him clearly showed that these armored soldiers had walked out of the heavenly palace of death in the extreme Yin Temple to cause trouble. Then, they were suppressed here by a powerful fighter in the past. This really shocked him. Lin Tian was also a little confused about this, but he didn't think too much about it. After all, this had nothing much to do with him. Boom! In front of him, under the black hole, an even thicker aura of death rushed up. More armored soldiers stepped out, densely packed together. At least a few hundred. There are so many of them. Ling Yun was shocked. Then he frowned. This ancient temple should have existed for a very long time. It should have at least a few 100,000 years of history. In other words, these armored soldiers have been suppressed for at least a few 100,000 years. How can they still be alive? Even the most powerful emperor wouldn't be able to survive for so long, right? Which eye of yours saw that they were still alive? Lin Tianandao. Ling Yun was stunned. Then, he became a little embarrassed. Cough, this seems like they are all dead objects. Lin Tian glanced at him. With a slight thought, a dense golden sword light appeared. Together with his fifth sky of Nirvana realm cultivation, every sword light seemed to be able to break the heavens and shatter the earth. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In an instant, the armored soldiers exploded one after another. In the blink of an eye, they turned into black dust. Roar! Suddenly, a fierce roar came from the black hole under the ancient temple. The aura of death was extremely terrifying. It shook the sky as if it was going to collapse in the next moment. Chapter 1137. A violent roar came out from the black hole under the ancient temple. For a moment, the entire space was shaking. The pitch-black aura of death was like a volcano erupting from hell. It soared up to a height of several hundred feet and dyed the sky black. With a rumbling sound, a knight stepped out. His entire body was enveloped in pitch-black armor, and even his head was no exception. He rode on the back of a strange beast covered in scales, and he held a copper halberd in his hand. He swept up the mist of death that filled the sky as he arrived. Kungs! The bronze halberd in his hand moved, and the entire space shattered. The halberd's tip was covered in rust, but it gave people a terrifying feeling. At the same time, the beast below him roared. It was filled with a ruthless death aura, and a rolling mist swept in all directions. The roar just now came from this beast? It's comparable to a 7th-level Nirvana expert. Whooshing Crocodile's expression was slightly cold. He looked at the armored knight. As for it, it's definitely not weaker than a normal half-step emperor. Pretty much. Lin Tiandao. His expression didn't change. He took a step forward and clenched his right hand slightly. Immediately after, he threw a punch forward. In an instant, the void shook violently. It was as if a sacred drum had been struck, and the world in all directions instantly collapsed. Ayo! Ong! The true dragon and phoenix appeared at the same time. They were mighty and shocking. One pounced at the armored knight, while the other pounced at the beast below the armored knight. In an instant, with a loud rumble, a hurricane blew. The beast below the armored knight was directly blasted into pieces, and black blood splattered everywhere. At the same time, with a prung sound, the armored knight was violently shaken. The bronze halberd almost slipped out of his hand, and he was forced to retreat. Lin Tiandao's expression was calm. He took another step forward and immediately appeared above the armored knight's head. Dong! He swung his fist again, and the space in all directions was destroyed at the same time. It landed firmly on the armored knight's head, smashing it into pieces and causing the headless body to fall back into the black hole. Moreover, under this punch, the hundreds of armored soldiers in the surroundings were all affected. They were affected by the tyrannical power of this punch and exploded one after another. In the blink of an eye, the armored knights and ordinary armored soldiers that had rushed out from the black hole were completely destroyed. So strong. Ling Yun glared at him. Damn pervert. Whooshing Crocodile bared its teeth. Even Yin Yamur, who was standing at the side, had her mouth agape. Coupled with the shocked expression on her face, she appeared rather alluring. An armored knight that wasn't weaker than a normal half-step emperor, a mutated death beast that was comparable to a 7th-stage Nirvana realm expert, and several hundred other powerful armored soldiers were actually completely obliterated in just 2 punches. What kind of terrifying strength was this? You're really going to defy the heavens? Whooshing Crocodile rolled its eyes. Lin Tianyi smiled. After all, I've reached the 5th stage of Nirvana realm. After 2 consecutive Nirvana body metamorphoses, my strength has increased by a lot. Moreover, I've already used my full strength just now. Borrowing the wish power from the 9 totem statues, he had reached the 5th stage from the 3rd stage of Nirvana realm. After 2 consecutive Nirvana body metamorphoses, his strength was much stronger than when he was at the 3rd stage of Nirvana realm. His physique was no weaker than a half-step emperor. Adding on the fact that he was using the primal Chaos Emperor Fist with his full strength, his offensive strength was naturally unparalleled. It wasn't difficult for him to wipe out the armored knights, mutated death beasts, and ordinary armored soldiers with just 2 punches. Moreover, these armored knights and armored soldiers all had fatal weaknesses. Once they were shattered once, they would be destroyed. As such, it was even easier for him to destroy them now. After speaking, he looked at the black hole on the ground. The aura of death inside was tumbling, but there were no more armored soldiers that rushed out. Those just now should be all that is sealed in this place, he said. Whooshing Crocodile nodded. Looking at the black hole, his eyes were filled with shock. It seems that in the most ancient era, the armored soldiers in the Death Heavenly Palace really came out and wreaked havoc in the world. This back then, which expert took action? Was it those totems? To be able to deal with such a disaster, truly not simple. Lin Tiandao. His voice was calm, but his heart was very shocked. Back then, when he and Whooshing Crocodile entered the depths of the Death Heavenly Palace, they saw the densely packed armored soldiers and demonic death beasts. There were at least 1 million of them, and each of them emitted an extremely terrifying aura. The aura of death overflowed the sky. If they really came out, they could definitely overturn the world. Now that they saw these armored soldiers sealed in this place, it was enough to prove that the armored soldiers in the Death Heavenly Palace had come out. Once they came out, it was naturally impossible for only a part of them to come out. They must have come out in full force. Such a torrent of death that could overturn the world was actually stopped by someone. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the person who did it back then was. After a pause, he shook his head. Forget it. Let's not care about it. It has nothing to do with us. Don't worry too much, Buzz. Suddenly, in a sea of consciousness, the divine sword trembled slightly and buzzed at the bottom of his sea of consciousness. Strands of seven-colored divine light rippled out, pointing directly to the depths of this sleepless place. This is... Lin Tianyi was shocked and immediately moved. At this moment, the buzzing of the seven-colored divine sword was all too familiar to him. It was because it had sensed the sword's soul fragment. This made his eyes shine brightly. When the heavenly mystery progenitor said that there was something he needed here, it must be the sword's soul fragment. Kid, what happened all of a sudden? Wuxing Crocodile asked. Beside him, Yin Yip and Ling Yun also looked at Lin Tian. They both sensed that Lin Tian's expression was strange at this moment. I sensed what I was looking for. Lin Tian looked into the depths of the sleepless place and said, You sensed it? Ling Yun was moved. They had traveled thousands of miles from the southern region to the sleepless place in the eastern region because Lin Tian was looking for something important. Then let's hurry up and run over there. Lin Tian nodded. Let's go. The seven-colored divine sword in his sea of consciousness reacted, allowing him to sense the approximate location of the sword's soul fragment. At this moment, he led the way and rushed directly into the depths of the sleepless place. After more than a year, their cultivation had improved a lot. Naturally, their speed was much faster. In the blink of an eye, they had crossed a long distance. Boom! At this moment, the sky shook violently. Bolts of black lightning struck down. The space in all directions collapsed immediately. The bottom also collapsed as if a heavenly tribulation had descended. It's not as scary as the death storm, but it's scary enough. Wuxing Crocodile's eyes turned cold. Ling Yun nodded. It's very scary. If an ordinary half-step emperor were to come in contact with it, he would probably be very unlucky. Lin Tian naturally sensed the power of the black lightning. At the same time, he also sensed that there was a dense, great Tao of lightning in this place. It was as if once a living creature approached, it would trigger destructive lightning to strike down. He felt pressured by the black lightning that fell from the sky, but he didn't feel the threat of death. Then, with a buzz, a divine map rushed out from behind him and propped up Wang Yu. Then, the nameless Great Tao laws surged up and merged with the reincarnation map. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a Great Tao reincarnation map, intertwining with a divine and sacred aura. Let's go. He enveloped the group with the Great Tao reincarnation map and moved forward. With a rumble, the black lightning landed on the Great Tao reincarnation map, causing it to tremble violently. Soon, dense cracks appeared on it. However, with Lin Tian's current cultivation at the 5th level of the rebirth realm, the reincarnation diagram he created was sufficiently powerful. In the end, he was able to resist all the lightning, allowing them to safely pass through the area of destructive lightning. So powerful! Yin Yipper looked at Lin Tiandao. The black lightning just now was enough to threaten an ordinary half-step emperor, but Lin Tian used a divine map to bring the group through safely. This really surprised her. It's all right. Lin Tianyi smiled. He sensed the direction of the sword's soul fragment and called for the group to follow behind him. They continued to walk into the depths of the sleepless land. Just like that, 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. In these 7 days, as they went deeper, they encountered danger a few times, but they all passed through safely. Kid, are we there yet? Wuxing Crocodile asked. Lin Tiandao said, Not yet, but we're not far from here. He continued to walk at the front and continued to walk deeper. During this process, his speed was very fast, but he was also very cautious. His divine sense was always entwined around his body, forming a huge, invisible protective net. As long as there was a trace of abnormality, he would be able to sense it at the first moment. Just like that, another 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, specks of immortal light suddenly appeared in front of them, and a dozen or so immortal plants appeared in their field of vision. Although they were all only around 3 inches tall, they were all intertwined with specks of sparkling luster, and there was even a dense Tao light lingering around them. Immediately, the group was moved, Yuan returning young grass, soul-nourishing flower, immortal rare plant. Whooshing crocodile stared. They are all incredible immortal herbs. Pluck them. Ling Yun's eyes lit up. The group walked forward, each taking action, all of them obtaining a few stalks of immortal medicines. Some had the ability to extend one's life, at least 2,000 years. Some could strengthen one's foundation, producing a transformation. Some could nourish one's soul, at least double in strength. It could be said that together, this was a shocking treasure trove. Even a Boundary Emperor expert would be envious of it. Who would have thought that there would be so many precious, immortal medicines in this dead zone that is said to be devoid of life? Whooshing Crocodile clicked his tongue. Lin Tian was also a little surprised, but he wasn't too surprised. In the blink of an eye, he calmed down again. Chapter 1138. 7 colored rays of light shot out from the depths like innate holy light, illuminating the area tens of thousands of feet away. However, there was also a trace of haziness amidst the brightness. It was as if a legendary supreme treasure of the immortal realm had appeared in the world, and its immortal splendor was dazzling. Found it. A glint flashed across Lin Tian's eyes. Let's go. He didn't have time to think too much. He directly called Yin Yu-Er and the others and rushed forward. Yin Yu-Er and the others followed behind, their speed also very fast. Just like that, they crossed hundreds of thousands of feet in the blink of an eye. With Lin Tian in the lead, the group appeared behind a small dark mountain. Between the cracks of a few black rocks, a fist-sized ball of rainbow light floated quietly. It was crystalline. Lin Tian stared at the 7-colored light source, and the light in his eyes suddenly became stronger. At the same time, Whooshing Crocodile, Ling Yun, and Yin Yu-Er were all shocked. Kid, are you looking for this 7-colored light source again? What is it? How many are there? Whooshing Crocodile was surprised because this was not the first time Lin Tian found this 7-colored light source. Another piece of this thing? This is not the only one. Have you been looking for the same thing? Ling Yun stared at him. Previously, in the 8th heaven, such a 7-colored light source appeared in the West Nether Continent, attracting many powerhouses to fight for it. Even the legendary Nether Demonic Dragon was attracted to it. In the end, that light source fell into Lin Tian's hands, but he didn't expect to see another one here. Lin Tian has been looking for this thing all this time. Yin Yu was also shocked. She stared straight at the 7-colored light source, her eyes full of shock. What a powerful energy! The surrounding great Daos are all suppressed, it seems. She had an immortal spiritual body, so her perception of the great Daos was the most sensitive. At this time, she clearly noticed that the great Daos around the 7-colored light source were all trembling. Not only were they suppressed by the aura emitted by the 7-colored light source, but they also seemed to be subdued and frightened. Even little Tai Chu, who was on top of Lin Tian's head, opened his eyes wide as he stared at the 7-colored light source. It was as if he had seen something very interesting, making him look very cute. Buzz! In front of them, the fist-sized 7-colored light source trembled on its own, emitting a buzzing sound, and an even stronger divine light overflowed. For a moment, the space became even brighter. The 7-colored light surrounded the surroundings, dyeing the large rocks and the ground in 7 colors. Lin Tian stared at the 7-colored light source, and his heart was unprecedentedly excited. According to his estimation, this 7-colored light source was the sword's soul fragment of the divine sword in his sea of consciousness, and he estimated that the sword's soul fragment had been broken into 9 pieces. From the 1st heaven until now, he had found a total of 8 fragments of this sword's soul fragment to fuse with the 7-colored divine sword. In front of him was the last one. As long as he could fuse with this sword soul fragment and make the divine sword complete, he might be able to control the 7-colored divine sword in his sea of consciousness. And as long as he could control the divine sword, he could even kill an emperor now. He took a deep breath, and asked the little Taichu to leave his side temporarily to protect him, and then he took a step forward. Buzz! As he leaned forward, the fist-sized seven-colored light source jumped on its own, rose up, and came to his chest. At the same time, in his sea of consciousness, the seven-colored divine sword at the bottom of his sea of consciousness shook even more violently. He took another deep breath, and with a sharp light in his eyes, he stretched out his right hand, and the sword mark in his palm emitted a faint light. Suddenly, the seven-colored light source floating in front of his chest shook slightly, and directly sank into the sword mark, then moved along his flesh and blood, and appeared in his sea of consciousness in the blink of an eye, next to the divine sword at the bottom of his sea of consciousness. The divine sword trembled slightly, and the fist-sized seven-colored light source disappeared into the divine sword in the blink of an eye. In an instant, the divine sword produced an even stronger seven-colored light, and a seven-colored hurricane swept out in Lin Tian's sea of consciousness. After this seven-colored hurricane swept out, it immediately turned into an incomparably pure energy, and just like before, it went straight to Lin Tian's body, quickly pouring into every corner of his body from his sea of consciousness. Suddenly, his body trembled involuntarily, and his essence, qi, spirit, and cultivation began to rise rapidly. Lin Tian could clearly feel all of this. After all, this was a change in his own body. Immediately, he focused his mind and then activated the Sun Heart Sutra and began to refine this energy. Buzz! As he activated the Sun Heart Sutra to refine the rich energy overflowing from the divine sword, a golden divine light rushed out of his body, like the blazing sun, and dyed the space with a layer of golden dust. Immediately, the aura he emitted increased even faster, and his essence, qi, and spirit doubled in the blink of an eye. This, not far away, Yin Yammer, Wuxing Crocodile, and Ling Yun were shocked. Lin Tian's aura was increasing too quickly. Is he going to level up again? Ling Yun stared. Lin Tian had just reached the 5th level of Nirvana realm not long ago, and there were signs of leveling up again. Yeah. Little Taichu floated to the side and looked at Lin Tian, blinking its big watery eyes from time to time, and said in a childish voice. At this time, Lin Tian had already sat down cross-legged on the ground. The Sun Heart Sutra was activated even faster, and he was wholeheartedly refining the energy overflowing from the rainbow divine sword. Suddenly, the golden divine light outside his body became thicker, and the nameless aura of the law of the great path also boiled. Buzz! The golden light was dazzling and dazzling. Gradually, this golden divine light became thicker, and his entire body was drowned in this golden light. At the same time, the aura he emitted naturally continued to rise. Just like this, a month passed in the blink of an eye. In a month's time, he had completely refined the rich energy that surged from the rainbow divine sword, and his essence, qi, and spirit had expanded to an extremely high point, like boiling water. However, in the next moment, this powerful aura that had expanded to an extremely high point began to fall back at an alarming speed, and in the blink of an eye, it had weakened to the lowest point. It was also at this time that his body began to petrify, and his legs, which were sitting cross-legged, turned into dim stone in an instant. This is Nirvana Stage 6. Not far away, a group of people were shocked. His advancement is so fast. Yin opened her small mouth, and coupled with the shock on her face, it was very cute. Little Taichu floated to the side, looking at Lin Tian like a child, and the wings on its back trembled slightly from time to time. There was no light outside Lin Tian's body, and his body continued to petrify from his legs to his head. In the blink of an eye, his entire body had turned into stone, and the aura he emitted was so low that it was undetectable, as if his body and soul had been destroyed. It's starting the 5th Nirvana. I don't know how long it will take this time. Ling Yun said with his eyes wide open. Just wait quietly. Wuxing Crocodile said. In the process of Nirvana, the old body petrified and shed, and a new body was born from within. It was a true transformation. Lin Tian was going through the fifth nirvana, and his old body turned into stone, while his new body began to condense and gradually become stronger. In the blink of an eye, another 3 months had passed. This time, Lin Tian's nirvana didn't take long. After 3 months, a crack appeared on his petrified old body, and then the crack quickly spread to the surroundings. In the blink of an eye, it covered the entire body of stone, and the stone body slowly shattered. Crack! 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 Pieces of stone fell off, and very soon, a new body appeared behind the shattered stone body. A faint, crystalline light flowed through the body, and a powerful aura involuntarily spread out, causing the space there to involuntarily tremble. Nirvana Stage 6. Success! Whooshing Crocodile couldn't help but exclaim, and his eyes were filled with a bright, demonic light. The cracking sounds continued, and the petrified old body continued to shatter. Finally, Lin Tian's new body was completely revealed. At this time, he closed his eyes lightly and did not move at all. Only a faint brilliance flowed on the surface of his body. Only a turbulent aura involuntarily intertwined from his body and surged around his new body. Powerful! Boom boom! Why isn't he awake? Ling Yin was curious. Yin Yer looked at Lin Tian, thought for a while, and said, he should be feeling something. Lin Tian's body was surrounded by a faint light, and he looked like a god. At this time, he didn't open his eyes, and all his thoughts were gathered in his consciousness. His soul took a step forward and went directly to the rainbow divine sword at the bottom of his consciousness. By now, the estimated 9 fragments of the sword soul had been completely found and integrated into the divine sword. He felt that the sword soul should be complete, and the divine sword should be complete as well. He felt that he should be able to control the divine sword on his own. His soul came close to the divine sword, and he was a little excited. His tyrannical divine consciousness surrounded the rainbow divine sword. Then, in the next moment, his expression changed slightly. He used his tyrannical divine consciousness to communicate with this divine sword, but the result was the same as before, and he didn't receive any response. At the same time, he saw that the mysterious patterns on the surface of the divine sword had covered the entire body of the sword. These mysterious patterns covered the entire body of the sword, and one part of the sword was bright, while the other part was dark. This is still incomplete? He was a little lost. Suddenly, the rainbow divine sword vibrated slightly, and many pictures intertwined around the divine sword, as if they were engravings of the divine consciousness. He saw a divine sword with intertwining rainbow-colored lights rushing out of the eternal, unknown darkness. It streaked across the godly universe, the deity ground, and the starry sky. It broke through layer after layer of barriers, and finally, it fell under a dark cliff. Throughout this process, pieces of 7-colored lights fell from the divine sword from time to time, landing in every corner of the world. Chapter 1139. Genius 1 second. Remember Love Go / Little? Shua. Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Lin Tian already knew that there were other macro worlds outside the 10 Directions Heaven territory. After all, the blue planet he used to live in was outside the 10 Directions Heaven territory. However, he didn't expect that the divine sword in his sea of consciousness would come from outside the 10 Directions Heaven territory. Part of the divine sword's sword soul was scattered in other corners of the macro world. This, even with his current mental state of a 6th layer Nirvana stage expert, he was completely stunned when he saw this scene. This sword seems to be far beyond my imagination. What's its origin? He murmured. The images in the divine sword collapsed one after another, intertwining with the colorful light, which made him a little absent-minded. After that, it was only after dozens of breaths that he became slightly more clear-headed. Forget it, it's no big deal. The more mysterious it is, the more powerful it is. I'm looking forward to the day when I can gather it and complete it. His eyes lit up. He stared at the divine sword for the last time. His divine soul stepped forward and returned to the sea of consciousness. In the next moment, he slowly opened his eyes. You're awake. Ling Yin said. Yinya and Wuxing Crocodile also looked over. Kid, what are you comprehending? Wuxing Crocodile asked. This time, Lin Tian's nirvana transformation took more than half an hour after Old Stone's body was shattered before he finally opened his eyes. This made Lin Tian curious. Well, almost. Lin Tianten smiled and stood up from the ground. Yeah. Little Taichu cried and flew back to Lin Tian's head. Lin Tianyi smiled and looked at Yinya, and the others again. It's about time. Let's go. He could guess that there was something in the sleepless land that ancestor Tianji mentioned. It was the sword's soul fragment. At this time, he had already gotten the sword's soul fragment. Naturally, he felt that there was no need to stay in this forbidden area. Let's go, Wuxing Crocodile said. Immediately, the group walked out of the sleepless place. In this sleepless land, the space was always dusky, regardless of whether it was day or night. From time to time, a dark and cold wind would blow past, as though it was blowing from hell, giving people a frightening feeling. The cultivations of this group of people were extremely formidable, and the weakest was at the 3rd level of Rebirth Realm, so they naturally didn't care about this sort of aura. They followed the path they came from, and soon they were very far away. Boom! In front of them, the ground shattered as a wave of cold, evil chi rushed up, causing the surrounding void to tremble and distort. A gigantic, ferocious beast emerged from the ground. It had 4 claws and was about 3 meters tall. Its entire body was covered in scales, and its aura was ferocious. Roar! It was shaped like a lizard and let out a roar. Its eyes were scarlet red as it stared straight at Lin Tianyi and the others. Evidently, it was treating them as prey. He is not weaker than an expert of the Nirvana realm, Wuxing Crocodile said. It was also at this time that the lizard-like ferocious beast rushed over. Its 4 claws pressed against the ground, and its speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of the group of people. It opened its bloody mouth filled with a foul stench and directly swallowed the group of people. Yeah, so smelly. On top of Lin Tian's head, the little Taichu was somewhat dissatisfied. Its voice was childish, like that of a child, but it caused the ferocious beast to suddenly tremble violently. Dense fear immediately appeared in its scarlet eyes, like an ordinary person seeing a ferocious ghost from hell. Then, let's kill it. Lin Tianyi smiled. His right hand moved slightly, and 2 dazzling sword auras condensed in the blink of an eye. One after the other, they flew forward and slashed forward. Suddenly, with a poof, the ferocious beast that rushed over met the first sword aura and was directly cut into pieces. Only a demon soul escaped in a sorry state. However, almost at the same time, Lin Tian's second sword aura appeared right in front of the demon soul. Like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, it slashed straight up. With a swoosh, the demon soul was smashed into pieces and dissipated like starlight. Its body and soul were destroyed. This, Yinya and the others could not help but be shocked. An 8th-sky Nirvana realm ferocious beast was actually killed so easily. However, the group of people soon calmed down from their shock. After all, Lin Tian himself was monstrous enough. Now that he had reached the 6th sky of Nirvana realm, it was not difficult for him to kill an 8th sky Nirvana realm ferocious beast with his cultivation. Let's go. Let's get out of here as soon as possible. The air in these forbidden lands is really terrible. Wuxing Crocodile said. I feel the same. Ling Yun said. It had to be said that the air in the sleepless place was indeed very turbid. It was almost filled with evil chi, and it was very uncomfortable to breathe in. Lin Tian nodded. He seemed very calm as he walked out of the sleepless place. However, at this moment, a faint light suddenly flashed from the dark ground where the ferocious beast had broken out of the ground. It fell into his field of vision. This made him a little curious. He activated his divine power and waved his right hand, directly grabbing the thing that gave off the faint light in his hand. He lowered his head to look at the thing that he had grabbed from the ground in his right hand. He discovered that it was a small purple wooden tablet, less than half an inch in length and width. It was engraved with all kinds of strange runes. They were densely packed like little tadpoles. What is this? He frowned slightly. He could feel that this small wooden tablet was very unusual because the runes on it were very profound. Moreover, there seemed to be a very shocking intertwining of Taoist principles inside it. However, he did not know what it was exactly. What's wrong? Whooshing Crocodile asked when he saw the strange expression on his face. At the same time, Yin Yip and Ling Yun also looked over. Lin Tian stretched out his hand and spread out the small wooden tablet in the palm of his hand. It appeared in the vision of the two people and the crocodile. I picked it up from the ground where the ferocious beast had rushed out. It seems very unusual, but I can't tell what it is. He said, Lord Crocodile, take a look. Whooshing Crocodile looked at the small wooden tablet in the palm of Lin Tian's hand. It paused, and its eyes gradually revealed a look of surprise. This seems to be an escape talisman. It stared at the small purple wooden tablet in Lin Tian's hand with its eyes wide open. Lin Tian Wei was puzzled. Escape talisman? What's the use of it? Ling Yun was also puzzled. Yin Yer also looked at Whooshing Crocodile. Obviously, she did not know what the escape talisman that Whooshing Crocodile was talking about was. Whooshing Crocodile took a deep breath, and its eyes shone again. It stared at the small wooden tablet and said, the escape talisman, as the name suggests, allows life to escape. It is said that it was forged by an extremely talented empress in ancient times. It can replace the holder to die once. In other words, as long as you carry this escape talisman, it is equivalent to having 2 lives. What? Hearing this, Lin Tian, Yin Yer, and Ling Yun were all shocked. Holding this escape talisman was equivalent to having 2 lives. This was really too shocking. Are you sure? Lin Tian asked Whooshing Crocodile. Nonsense. When have I ever lied to you? Whooshing Crocodile said. Hearing Whooshing Crocodile's confident tone, Lin Tian's eyes could not help but light up. He really did not expect to find such a rare treasure by chance when he was about to leave the sleepless land. Holding this thing was equivalent to having an extra life. Kid, you can find such a rare treasure just by looking at it. Isn't your luck a bit too good? Whooshing Crocodile could not help but grit its teeth. It can't be helped. With good luck comes good luck. Lin Tian smiled and put the small wooden tablet in his hand into his mind. Whooshing Crocodile gritted its teeth and stared straight at the ground where the fierce beast had rushed out. It lit up the underground space with its demon light. Wait, Master Crocodile. Let's see if there are any more treasures down there. Maybe there is one more. Let me have a look too. Ling Yun joined in. For a time, the crocodile and the man released their demon light and divine light, searching inch by inch for the underground space where the fierce lizard beast had rushed out. Lin Tian was speechless. It's gone. Kid Lin has stepped on all the dog sh*t. After dozens of breaths, the crocodile and the man searched the underground space where the fierce lizard beast had rushed out, but they found nothing. Lin Tian was speechless. He was too lazy to care about these 2 guys. He looked at Yin Yer and said, Let's go, Yer. Okay. Yin Yer covered her mouth and snickered. She followed Lin Tian out. Whooshing Crocodile and Ling Yun curled their lips and followed. Woo-woo. In the sleepless land, the dark wind almost never stopped. From time to time, there would be a gust of wind mixed with wisps of yellow sand. Occasionally, there would be the remains of some beasts and human bones rolled in it. It looked a bit horrifying. Their group moved from the inner area to the outer area, and they encountered danger on numerous occasions. However, it wasn't a big deal because Lin Tian dealt with all of them by himself. After spending a few days of time, they finally arrived at the edge of the sleepless grounds and directly strode out. Phew! Ling Yun let out a long breath. The air outside is better. It's more comfortable to breathe. One is the normal environment, and the other is the forbidden zone. Of course, the normal environment is more comfortable. Lin Tian on Dao. The 5 Elements crocodile looked at the sleepless land from the outside. Come to think of it, we've spent about 2 years entering this forbidden area this time. As it spoke, it clicked its tongue and said, However, these 2 years were very worth it. The harvest is very good. Yes, that's true. Ling Yun nodded. In 2 years, he Whooshing Crocodile and Yinya had completed 2 Nirvana molts. From the early stage of Nirvana Realm to the 3rd stage of Nirvana Realm, Lin Tian had completed 3 Nirvana molts. From the 3rd stage of Nirvana Realm to the 6th stage of Nirvana Realm, he had also obtained a rare treasure like the Escape Talisman. The harvest was really amazing. Okay, stop sighing. Let's go. Lin Tian spoke at this time. He looked back at the sleepless land. Without saying anything more, he called out to the group and walked further away. Yinya followed beside him. She was very ethereal. Go, 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 Whooshing Crocodile said and followed Ling Yun. Then, in the blink of an eye, the group was very far away from the sleepless land. They walked for dozens of miles. What are we going to do next? Ling Yun asked Lin Tian on Dao. Chapter 1140. Genius 1 second. Remember love, go, / little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. What should he do next? Lin Tian thought for a while and said, let's just walk around and relax. After staying in the sleepless ground for 2 years, he was busy with cultivation. Now, he felt that it was better to take a break. Whooshing Crocodile guessed what Lin Tian was thinking and said, oh, that's not bad. You can't always be busy with cultivation. It's good to relax once in a while. Yinya also said. Lin Tian chuckled and walked forward slowly. Then, the group walked along the mountain forest and looked around casually. A few days passed in a flash. Speaking of which, why do I feel that the spirit chi in the eastern region is much stronger than the western and southern regions? The terrain is also more shocking than the western and southern regions. Walking in a large forest, Lin Tian said. His cultivation was extraordinary now. After walking for a few days, he found that the spirit chi in the eastern region was stronger than the western and southern regions. That's true. The 5 elements, Crocodile said. Among the 4 domains in this heaven realm, the south, west, and north domains have almost the same spiritual energy fluctuations and topographic veins. However, the east domain is much stronger than the other 3 domains, and its topographic veins are even more extraordinary. The reason for this is, according to the rumors, it seems that the ancestral dragon vein of this world has condensed a dragon essence, and it just so happens to reside in the east domain. Therefore, the east domain's spiritual energy and topographic veins are more astonishing than the other 3 domains. When Lin Tian heard this, he immediately revealed a shocked expression. The ancestral dragon vein of this world has condensed dragon essence. He controlled the dragon burial scripture and naturally knew about the dragon essence. It was condensed by the ancestral dragon vein and was equivalent to the fruit of the ancestral dragon vein. It had unimaginable value. Cultivating with it, it could be compared to countless divine veins. At the same time, it was a natural life extending medicine. It could at least extend the life of 9 emperors by 100,000 years. There is such a saying, but I'm not sure about the specifics. Throughout history, countless experts have searched the East region, including many 9th Heaven emperors. Unfortunately, they were all fruitless. Whooshing Crocodile shook its head, and then it paused for a moment before its eyes suddenly revealed a bright light as it looked at Lin Tiandao. Kid, you possess the dragon burial scripture and have attained the 6th level of the rebirth realm, so it ought to be 1,000 times easier for you to find the dragon essence than others. Why don't you try looking for it? As it spoke, its eyes lit up even more. If this eastern region really has such a level of dragon essence, then once we find it, we'll really hit the jackpot. If we can find such a heaven-defying item and cultivate it, we might be able to directly enter the half-step emperor realm. As for you, who has the highest cultivation, you might be able to directly enter the emperor realm. At the side, Ling Yun's eyes lit up as he listened. He looked at Lin Tian and raised his hand. Agreed. Agreed my ass. In ancient history, so many emperors came to look for it, but none of them could find it. Now, we can almost question whether this saying is true or not. Love go, little, say. Lin Tian glanced at Ling Yun and Whooshing Crocodile and said, even if this saying is true, even if I find it, I don't have the ability to touch it. This kind of dragon essence condensed from the ancestral dragon vein requires at least 7 emperors to work together to touch it. Otherwise, whoever touches it will die. The ancestral dragon vein is the foundation of a great world. It's almost equivalent to the great world itself. How can ordinary people touch the fruit condensed from such a thing at will? So terrifying? Whooshing Crocodile stared at Ling Yun. What do you think? Lin Tiandao asked. As he said that, a thought suddenly flashed in his mind. He remembered the 9 dragons playing with a pearl terrain in the 4th heaven. In that terrifying terrain, there is a dragon pearl. The energy contained in that dragon pearl is terrifyingly strong, and it can't be touched by anyone below the Emperor realm. He thought in his heart, with his current 6th heaven of nirvana layer cultivation, he should be able to take away the dragon pearl with the help of the dragon burial scripture. That dragon pearl was also a heaven-shaking divine treasure. Thinking so, his eyes couldn't help but reveal a glimmer of light. After taking a deep breath, he calmed down again. Then, as he slowly walked forward, the intertwining aura around his body gradually became as light as a breeze. Their group walked casually through the mountains and soon appeared on a main road. There were many cultivators coming and going on the road. That is Lin Tian. On this main road, many cultivators saw Lin Tianyi and his group. When they saw Lin Tian, they couldn't help but tremble. More than 2 years ago, Lin Tian plotted to kill 9 half-step emperors of the great extinguishing divine dynasty in the 9th heaven. Then, the little Taichu next to him killed the divine sons and quasi-emperors of the Yin-Yang sect and other top forces. His fierce reputation was unparalleled. At this time, when these cultivators saw Lin Tian appear here, how could they not be afraid? For a time, on this main road, all the cultivators couldn't help but stop. Everyone retreated to the sides and took the initiative to make way. One by one, their eyes fell on Lin Tian's body, all with horror. Lin Tian had long been accustomed to this kind of thing. He didn't care about it and calmly walked forward. Yeah, the little Taichu laid on his head and noticed the gazes of many cultivators. Its big eyes were full of curiosity. It raised its small head and looked at the group of cultivators on the main road. For a time, facing the gaze of the little guy, many cultivators trembled fiercely. Many people stepped back, cold sweat dripping down their foreheads. What a joke! 2 years ago, the little guy could easily obliterate a quasi-emperor with a wave of his claws. This news is already spread throughout the 9th heaven. How could these cultivators not be afraid when facing the little guy's eyes at this time? Yeah. Seeing the reaction of these cultivators, the little Taichu was even more curious. It called out to the crowd in confusion. Immediately, the cultivators in the area it was looking at became even more fearful. Some of the weak-willed cultivators even fell on their butts and sat on the ground. Yeah. The little Taichu tilted its small head. The suspicion in its eyes was even stronger. It stared at the group of cultivators like a curious baby. Immediately, another group of cultivators fell to the ground, trembling. Cold sweat flowed down their foreheads uncontrollably. Lin Tian, Yin Yer, Whooshing Crocodile, and Ling Yun. Little guy, don't stare at these people anymore. Lin Tian said to the little guy. Yeah. The little guy lowered its small head and looked at Lin Tian curiously. Seeing the little guy like this, Lin Tian couldn't help but smile. Well, it's not good to stare at strangers. In this place, the cultivators were obviously afraid of the little Taichu. However, he naturally couldn't tell the little guy the truth. The little guy blinked. Although it still didn't understand, it didn't stare at the other cultivators anymore. It lay down quietly on Lin Tian's head. So cute. Yin Yer smiled. Lin Tian also smiled. The group didn't pay attention to the cultivators on the road. Soon, they were far away and disappeared into a mountain in the distance. Only then did the cultivators on the road let out a long sigh of relief. Many of them reached out to wipe the cold sweat. Back then, after the battle in the Taichu Immortal Ridge, Lin Tian and his companions disappeared. I didn't expect that after 2 years, they would appear again. Moreover, they came to the East region. Someone swallowed. For the past 2 years, the Heavenly Demon Divine sect, the Saint Inyang sect, the Shrine of Desolation, and the Immortal Sword Island have been looking for him. It's said that even the emperor-level patriarchs of the major sects have come out and joined forces to find him. However, they still couldn't find him. Now, he actually appeared and came here from the West region. Those four top forces will probably come to find him soon, right? The strongholds of the great extinguishing divine dynasty from the first heaven to the eighth heaven were all destroyed. 9 emperors were killed, and even the humanoid weapon they cultivated thousands of years ago was destroyed. In the past 2 years, although they didn't do anything on the surface, I'm afraid that they have been secretly searching for his whereabouts, now that he's showing up without hiding. Obviously, this terrifying assassin divine dynasty will also come for him. This time, I'm afraid this heaven will be lively again. These cultivators murmured. Many of them couldn't help but tremble. At this time, Lin Tianyi and the others had already gone far away from this place. They were still leisurely strolling through the mountains. Walking around leisurely like this, not thinking about anything, not doing anything, it's really quite comfortable. Whooshing Crocodile clicked his tongue. You can hibernate. Lie down and don't move. It's more comfortable to sleep for 100 years. Lin Tian said casually. Whooshing Crocodile, get lost. I told you, your grandpa Crocodile doesn't need to hibernate. The group walked through the mountains and forests, enjoying the greenery. More than 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, they walked out of a big mountain. The round sun was high in the sky. The sunlight shone down, making it seem a little gentle. After walking like this for more than 10 days, I feel like my state of mind has improved a lot. Ling Yin said. Lin Tian nodded. Relax appropriately and return to nature. It's a kind of cultivation of the state of mind. The benefits are, clang. At this moment, a dazzling killing sword appeared in the distant sky, directly interrupting his next sentence. This killing sword was mixed with terrifying blood light and destructive emperor's aura. It seemed to be suppressing all directions. For a time, the surrounding void collapsed. The silver space turbulence had just flowed out and was directly swept away. This sword pierced straight through Lin Tian. The space buzzed. Above Lin Tian's head, the little Taichu moved on its own. This time, Lin Tian didn't have to say anything. It directly propped up a 6-color light curtain and blocked the sword. Then, it shattered outside the 6-colored light curtain. Lin Tian raised his head and looked at the place where the blood-red killing sword came from. A figure surrounded by blood light stood in the sky. Only his deep eyes could be seen. He was cold and indifferent, and there was a surging emperor's aura intertwined around him. Emperor, great extinguishing godly dynasty, he said coldly. Chapter 1141. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. The blood-red figure was surrounded by blood-red radiance. Only his cold eyes were exposed. His emperor's aura was rolling like waves. This kind of emperor aura was a bit terrifying. It was far from what half-step emperors or half-emperors could compare to. It was extremely vast, causing the 5 elements crocodile and the others' bodies to tremble slightly. They immediately felt an extremely cold aura. A Shadi, whooshing crocodile, gritted his teeth. The great extinguishing god dynasty took killing as their Tao. Once the people of this lineage reached the emperor realm, they would be extremely terrifying. Lin Tian naturally sensed the terror of the newcomer. The murderous intent of the newcomer seemed to be able to shatter a big world. He was like a real god of death from hell. Even so, his expression did not change at all. He was as cold as the Shadi of the great extinguishing god dynasty. Clang! The sword chimed. In the distant sky, the Shadi of the great extinguishing god dynasty moved. He swung the killing sword at Lin Tian with his bare hands. With a cracking sound, the space in all directions silently collapsed. A blood-red crack appeared and spread in all directions. It was the Emperor-level blood-red sword aura. Third heaven of the Emperor realm. Ling Yun's expression was solemn. Lin Tian looked at the sword coming at him and did not move. His eyes were cold. He beckoned the little Taichu to attack. Instantly, the six-colored divine radiance spread. The little Taichu moved. It shook the wings on its back and shattered the blood-red sword. Squeak! The little guy squeaked and flew up from Lin Tian's head. It waved its claws. In an instant, a large patch of six-colored divine radiance appeared silently. It pressed down from all directions and trapped the Sha Di of the great extinguishing god dynasty. It sealed every inch of space. The Sha Di of the great extinguishing god dynasty looked indifferent. He raised his hand, and the blood-red radiance filled the sky. The blood-red radiance was not a simple killing light. It contained the great Tao law. There was more than one kind of great Tao law. 3 kinds of great Tao law merged together to form a brand new Tao force. It was a force that killed for the sake of killing. Boom! When the six-colored divine light collided with the blood-red light, divine radiance instantly filled the sky, causing the surrounding void to collapse. Yeah! Little Taichu screamed and flapped its wings. The six-colored divine light became thicker and pressed down on the Sha Di from the divine dynasty again. For a moment, the entire space was shrouded in holy light. The slayer of the great extinguishing god dynasty moved like a phantom. He created many Tao chains, each of which contained extremely strong killing power. They collided with the little Taichu's six-colored divine light. Chi! 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 As they collided again and again, the surrounding space was annihilated inch by inch. Even the turbulent flow of space could not flow out. Using killing as the Tao and reaching the third heaven of primal chaos realm, he is indeed terrifying. He has completely blocked that little fellow. Whooshing Crocodile frowned. However, he merely managed to block it. He did not gain the upper hand. Instead, he was evenly matched. Ling Yin said. Yenyu shook her head and said, "No, that's not right. That little fellow is obviously stronger. However, he is not as experienced as the slayer of the great extinguishing god dynasty. That's why he is able to block it now." Lin Tian nodded. "Ye is right. In terms of pure strength, that little fellow is much stronger. However," clang, suddenly, the ear-piercing sound of the sword rang out again. Not far away, in another location in the sky, a shocking long rainbow appeared out of nowhere. It was more than 7 feet long and was intertwined with a strong and cold killing aura. It approached the spot between Lin Tian's eyebrows. At the same time, it shrouded Yin Yu and the others. This sword was obviously much weaker than the blood-red sword that the Sha Di who fought with the little Taichu in the distant sky. However, it was still terrifying enough and seemed to be able to easily pierce through a half-step emperor. "Nirvana-killing saint sword," Lin Tian said coldly. A gentle, golden divine power rushed out of his body and enveloped Yin Yu, Whooshing Crocodile, and the others. Using the yin-yang steps, he moved dozens of feet away at extreme speed and dodged the sword. With a swoosh, the blood-red sword flew across the sky and landed on a small mountain in the distance, causing it to collapse. His terrifying power was evident from this. Not only the Sha Di, but there are also other powerful killers following him. Whooshing Crocodile gritted his teeth. "Love go, little say, W." Chulin Tian raised his head and looked at the place where the Nirvana-killing saint sword came from. A man in black stepped out of the void with a blood-stained holy sword in his hand. Like a ghost, he was surrounded by a faint emperor's aura. Half-step emperor. Ling Yun's eyes narrowed. Half-step emperor-level killers were also terrifying. Moreover, the man in front of him did not look like an old antique. This was enough to show that he was much stronger than ordinary half-step emperors. Because at the same level the younger one was, the more terrifying his combat strength would be. The man in black stepped into the void. With every step he took, the space around him would be distorted. "Your head will be the cornerstone for me to become the Killer Lord." The man was expressionless. As soon as he finished speaking, the killing aura outside his body surged as if it was going to turn the surrounding space into a killing zone. Become the Killer Lord? He is the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty. Whooshing Crocodile was shocked. The Killer Lord was the title of the great extinguishing god dynasty's divine son. Only the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty was qualified to become the Killer Lord. He looked at the man in black and then glanced at the Sha Di and little Taichu fighting not far away. He cursed, using a Sha Di to restrain little Taichu and then letting his half-step emperor-level divine son take Lin Tian's head. He is well prepared. He stared at the man in black with a serious expression. After all, to be able to become the divine son of a ruthless assassin organization like the great extinguishing god dynasty and be at the half-step emperor level, there was no need to doubt his strength. He was definitely much stronger than normal half-step emperors. At this moment, little Taichu was being restrained. Even if Lin Tian was at the Nirvana Realm Stage 6, he would still be in danger when facing this man. After all, in the Nirvana realm, the difference in combat strength between each small stage was unimaginable. Kong! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing as the blood sword flew across the sky. The divine son of the great, extinguishing god dynasty made his move. With a shake of the killing sword, a cold blood light instantly arrived. It went straight for Lin Tian's forehead. The terrifying killing sword made Whooshing Crocodile, Ling Yun, and the others feel a chill down their spines as their hearts palpitated. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He took a step forward and a saint's sword appeared in his hand. He brandished the sword light and slashed towards the incoming attack. Kong! The sword light was reddish-gold in color. The sword aura was terrifying and oppressive. In the blink of an eye, the two swords collided and exploded into a divine light that filled the sky. It was unknown how much space was torn apart. With a whoosh, the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty disappeared like a ghost and reappeared behind Lin Tian like a ghost. The blood-stained saint's sword in his hand was swung downwards, sealing off all directions. He slashed towards Lin Tian's neck at an extremely tricky angle. There was no way to defend against it. Not far away, Ling Yun's expression changed. This sword, it's a simple killing sword, but it contains many great forces. It's almost as if the Tao of killing has been cultivated to the point of returning to its original state. It's difficult to dodge or defend against it. Whooshing Crocodile was moved. This sword was domineering, swift and fierce, stunning. It was also extremely fast. In an instant, it had slashed through Lin Tian's neck. However, there was no trace of blood in the void. Lin Tian's figure slowly became distorted. That's an afterimage. Ling Yun stared. Even Yinya was shocked. So fast. When did he move and leave behind an afterimage? The divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty's eyes flickered. Then, there was the sound of something breaking through the air beside him. A cold sword edge slashed out from the void, heading straight for his forehead. The divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty flipped the saint's sword in his hand. Mixed with the power of the great extinguishing god dynasty, he met the cold sword edge with a hair's breadth. Clang! The two swords collided with each other, letting out a piercing metallic sound. Immediately, a large area of the void around them was shattered. Lin Tian's figure stepped out of the void. His expression was still indifferent. The divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty stared at Lin Tian. The divine concealment technique. How did you know it? I knew it when I thought about it. Lin Tian held the saint's sword and stepped towards the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty. Do you think a slayer and a half-step emperor can kill me? He stepped on the void towards the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty. His sword was sharp and powerful. It's enough. The divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty's face did not show any emotion. Holding the blood-stained saint's sword, he faced Lin Tian head-on. Third ancestor, hold that little beast back. I alone am enough to wipe out all of you. You have no chance of surviving. Clang! As his words fell, another piercing sword sound reverberated. The saint's sword glowed and slashed towards Lin Tian. Lin Tian snorted. Without any emotion, He activated the tyrannical sword scripture to the limit. A golden sword ray shot up into the sky. You're just a half-step emperor. Don't be too full of yourself. His voice was indifferent. The golden sword ray rushed past and collided with the saint's slaying sword. Then he stepped on the duality steps. Each step left behind afterimages. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty. Clang! The saint's sword in his hand emitted an immortal golden light. It pressed down on the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty. At the same time, he waved his left hand. There was a burst of dragon roars and phoenix cries. The power of his fist was overwhelming. The divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty used the blood-stained killing sword to meet the saint's sword slashing down from Lin Tian's right hand. At the same time, he swung his fist to meet Lin Tian's left fist. Clang! The two swords collided again. The crisp sound of metal almost shattered one's eardrums. The powerful sword aura was equally matched. At the same time, the two fists collided. Dong! A huge roar sounded on the spot. It was as if a saint drum had been beaten. It was also as if thunder had exploded. Then, with a bang, the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty flew out, as if he was struck by lightning. His left arm was torn apart. In an instant, blood splattered in the void. This kid's physical body is indeed too abnormal. Even the half-step emperor divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty can't withstand it. The whooshing crocodile stared. The divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty was sent flying. One of his arms was shattered. His body was also covered in cracks. Blood was gushing out of his mouth. Lin Tian looked at the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty who was sent flying. With a flash of his feet, he disappeared from where he was. Then, as if in an instant, he appeared behind the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty. The saint's sword in his right hand emitted a murderous light as he slashed at the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty's head. However, at this moment, the blood flowing out of the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty's shattered arm suddenly emitted a demonic bloody light. In an instant, it condensed into strands of dark blood patterns. Half of them wrapped around the saint's sword in Lin Tian's hand. The other half was intertwined with murderous light. Like ferocious beasts from hell, they pierced towards Lin Tian's head. At the same time, the divine son of the great extinguishing god dynasty turned his body slightly. He swung his sword expressionlessly. The intertwined murderous light pierced towards the abdomen where Lin Tian's life force origin was located. Chapter 1142. Genius 1 second. Remember love, go, / little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. A portion of the strange blood pattern wrapped around Lin Tian's sacred sword, while another portion pierced through Lin Tian's head. At the same time, Wanmi Shenxi's killing sword was also heading straight for Lin Tian's origin, causing the situation to change drastically. Everyone was shocked. Using Essence blood to form killing patterns, that's Wanmi Shenxi's soul lock technique. Once entangled, it's almost certain death. Whooshing Crocodile's expression changed. Clang! The soul lock killing pattern pierced through Lin Tian's head, while the blood-stained sacred sword pierced towards Lin Tian's origin. The space in all directions was sealed. Lin Tian immediately felt a huge threat, but the expression on his face did not change at all. With a rumble, the golden pure yang flame was pushed to the limit by him, enveloping his entire body. At the same time, a dazzling lotus flower sword rushed out from between his eyebrows. With the power of the consciousness phenomenon, it faced Wanmi Shenxi head-on. Boom! A shocking rumble resounded through the 9 heavens as a gust of wind swept in all directions. With a bang, Lin Tian's figure flew out. His clothes were undamaged, but there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Spirit Lock Technique. This killing technique consumes a lot of the user's essence blood. It is very terrifying. Adding on the fact that the half-step Emperor ranked divine child Wanmi is attacking with his saint's sword, it is almost impossible to escape. If it were any other half-step Emperor, their body and soul would have been destroyed. Under such a terrifying attack, this kid only suffered light injuries. Really? Whooshing Crocodile was shocked. With a clang, the sound of swords reverberated and intertwined in the void. Not bad. Wami Shensi held the blood-stained sacred sword and walked towards Lin Tian step by step. His severed left arm was repaired in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He reached out to wipe the blood at the corner of his mouth without saying a word. He held the sacred sword and spun it. Immediately, a large amount of sword radiance spread out. Whoosh! 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 The sword radiance pierced through the air and swept through the surroundings, all aiming at Wanmi Shensi. Love go little say, W, Chu at the same time. He took a step forward and closed in on his opponent. With each step, an afterimage appeared. With each step, an illusion appeared. With each step, a swift and fierce sword aura soared into the sky. The Wanmi Shensi was expressionless like a puppet. He swung the blood-stained sword in his hand, shattering all of the towering sword auras. Buzz! The blood-stained killing sword in his hand vibrated without any rules. It transformed into tens of thousands of saints' swords, completely enveloping the surrounding space. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The void was shattered. In the blink of an eye, numerous cracks appeared and were torn apart by the murderous sword momentum. Then, a gigantic, seemingly real, holy sword condensed in the sky and slashed toward Lin Tian with the power to slay immortals. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. Not only did the space here collapse, but the ground also exploded, sending rubble flying everywhere. What a tyrannical sword! Lin Tian faced this sword head-on without fear. He directly propped up the great deity king's divine shadow, which erupted with a sky full of divine light. It condensed into an equally huge light sword, which he swung towards the sky. With a whoosh, it shattered the huge sacred sword that deity Wanmi had slashed down. At the same time, he formed a seal with the great deity king's divine shadow. A huge Taoist diagram of the four divisions appeared and pressed toward his opponent. The Taoist diagram of the four divisions was silver in color, and it was covered with runic Tao marks. As soon as it appeared, it emitted a fluctuation that was enough to seal all things. It caused the flowing air to hum involuntarily, as if it was about to be pulled into the Taoist diagram of the four divisions to be sealed. The Wami Shensi's eyes moved slightly, apparently feeling threatened. The holy sword in his right hand turned into a perfect circle, while the fingers of his left hand interweaved a strange seal. In the blink of an eye, a blood-red killing diagram was formed. There were blood-red skull patterns mixed within, and it rushed into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the two collided, rubbing against each other. They did not give way to each other, and they intertwined with arcs of electricity. In the end, with a loud bang, the two exploded at the same time, sputtering light mist all over the sky, directly covering all directions. Lin Tian and the Wanmi Shensi, the two of them looked at each other from dozens of feet away. One looked indifferent, the other expressionless. Then, in the next moment, two sounds of the air being torn apart rang out at the same time. The two figures disappeared at the same time and rushed toward each other. Clang! An ear-piercing metallic sound immediately rang out in the light mist all over the sky, as if it was going to shatter one's eardrums. Clang! 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 The metallic sound continued to ring out, and streaks of sharp sword wind swept out, shattering the light mist all over the sky in the blink of an eye. As far as the eye could see, the two of them kept colliding with each other at an extremely fast speed. The holy swords in their hands kept colliding with each other, and every time they collided, there would be a terrifying sword wind. Every time the sword wind spread out, it would destroy a piece of the void. The momentum was terrifying. This kid, after reaching the sixth sky of Nirvana realm, his combat strength has actually become so strong. He actually completely blocked the Wanmi Shensi, who is a half-step emperor whose path is killing. Ling Yun was a little surprised. I was a little worried just now, but now it seems that this worry is completely unnecessary. Wuxing Crocodile said. A person who killed as his Dao was extremely terrifying. To be able to suppress others in the ruthless Wanmi divine dynasty and become the deity of this bloodline and reach the half-step emperor realm, it was enough to show how terrifying the deity of Wanmi was. Previously, it was still slightly worried that Lin Tian might not be a match for the deity of Wanmi, but now, it had completely dispelled this worry. Clang! 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 The ear-piercing metallic sound of the sword continued to ring out. The space shattered, reorganized, and shattered. The scene was exceptionally terrifying. As the sound of the sword rang out, hurricanes continuously swept out in this space, causing the ground to crack. Pieces of soil and large rocks flew into the sky before shattering with a chi-chi-chi sound. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Swoosh! An air-piercing sound rang out, and Lin Tian used the duality steps. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Wanmi Shensi and slashed down with his sword. This slash was fast, accurate, ruthless. In the blink of an eye, it landed on Wanmi Shensi's chest and cut his physical body into two. Immediately, blood splattered everywhere, filling the sky. However, it was also at this time that the splattered blood suddenly trembled and turned into blood-red killing swords. With a sonorous sound, it was like a rain of blood-red swords, shattering the void and piercing straight towards Lin Tian. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly, and the great deity king's divine shadow of the Bai clan rose again. It was as tall as 100 feet, firmly protecting him within. However, the killing swords that Wanmi Shensi condensed with his blood were a little terrifying. Although most of them were blocked, a small portion still pierced through his body, causing his powerful battle body to shake violently. "Very well," he said coldly. His body was pierced through by Wanmi Shensi's blood swords, and blood flowed, but he did not care at all. He did not even look at it. He took a step forward and directly pressed in front of Wanmi Shensi, and the Chaos Emperor's fist bombarded mercilessly. Dong! The powerful punch caused the entire space to tremble. With a poof, Wanmi Shensi's body that was cut in two was shattered by this punch, turning into a bloody mist. So powerful! In the distance, Yinyam Er's eyes were full of splendor. Boom! In the sky, on the battlefield, Wanmi Shensi's shattered flesh and blood trembled violently. A blood-red light swept out, and his flesh and broken bones quickly rushed together and began to reassemble. Lin Tian snorted, not giving his opponent a chance to do so at all. He displayed the Dao diagram of the four symbols again and pressed down on his opponent's shattered flesh and blood. The Dao diagram of the four symbols was hazy and intertwined with a sacred silver light, completely enveloping Wanmi Shensi's shattered flesh and blood, not giving him any chance to reassemble his body. At the same time, Lin Tian's eyes were indifferent. He summoned the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness, condensing it into the yin-yang lotus diagram, and pressed down together. Suddenly, Wanmi Shensi's attempt to reassemble his body was completely interrupted. His flesh and blood became even more fragmented, and even the spirit within began to tremble. Good, let's finish him off in one go. Wuxing Crocodile shouted. Ling Yun followed suit as he stared at the sky. His eyes were filled with excitement as he said, "Crush it." In the sky, Lin Tian's expression was cold. He used the seal of the four symbols and the yin-yang lotus diagram to envelop Wanmi Shensi's shattered body, crushing it over and over again, causing his opponent's flesh and bones to continuously shatter. His aura also began to weaken bit by bit. He held the sacred sword in his right hand, and his left hand formed a few hand seals. Suddenly, even more turbulent divine power surged out, causing the Dao diagram of the four symbols and the yin-yang lotus diagram to become even more powerful. They began to press inward, wanting to completely end Wanmi Shensi. Wanmi Shensi's flesh and blood continued to shatter, and soon completely shattered into a bloody mist. It looked like even his spirit was about to shatter. However, it was also at this moment that an extremely formidable Tao energy directly charged out from his shattered flesh and blood. It was like a volcano had erupted, and it carried an unparalleled offensive force as it forcefully blasted apart the four symbols Tao diagram and yin-yang lotus diagram. At the same time, with a bang, Lin Tian was blasted away by this powerful force of Tao. He felt a pain in his chest, as if his internal organs were about to shatter. Blood flowed out of his mouth involuntarily. Boom! An astonishing force of Tao spread out, shaking the entire space. Wami Shensi reformed his body in the blink of an eye. He was still expressionless, and strands of Tao light intertwined around his body. It was hazy and strange, as if it could crush and block everything. Facing this hazy fluctuation of Tao light, Lin Tian's eyes suddenly focused, and two rays of light flashed across his eyes. At the same time, not far away, Whooshing Crocodile and the other's expressions changed. This fluctuation of Tao law, Whooshing Crocodile's eyes flickered violently as he stared at the battlefield. The Great Tao ranked third among the 3,000 Great Taos, the Great Tao of creation. It's that kind of Great Tao. Yin Yer nodded, frowning her beautiful brows. He has mastered the Great Tao of creation. Ling Yun was shocked. The Great Tao of creation was ranked third among the 3,000 Great Taos. It was known to be unparalleled in terms of offense and defense. It was many times more terrifying than the Great Tao of chaos, and could almost crush everything. Wanmi Shensi stood in the sky, surrounded by the Great Tao light of creation, as if the immortal king of creation had descended. At this moment, he looked a little scary, and his aura was extremely oppressive. He held the blood-stained sacred sword, still expressionless, and swung it toward Lin Tian. This sword seemed to be very slow, but in fact, it was extremely fast. It was mixed with the oppressive, Great Tao light of creation, and even the air was annihilated. In the blink of an eye, it appeared above Lin Tian's head and slashed down mightily. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.